Hey now, happy Thursday afternoon. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you on this Thursday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Busy day of 580 Sports Talk coming up, and we've got plenty to get to in terms of the Chiefs, the Royals, college basketball, some college football on the final day of February. Happy Leap Day, by the by. College football news that, by the way, has me, to be blunt, pissed off. So we're going to get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. We'll get to the Chiefs and some free agent targets in just a minute. A piece from our friends over at Arrowhead Report about who the Chiefs might be targeting. So we'll get to that coming up here in just a few. Talk some Royals depth, roster depth in the 3 o'clock hour today. I was inspired by something I saw from our pal David Lesky about how many different Royals have options this year, like guys who can go up and down between the big club and AAA, which is significant, but it inspired a thought that maybe isn't such a positive about this Royals roster. So we'll get to that in the 3 o'clock hour today. CJ Moore is going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour for this week's Big 12 breakdown. Didn't get a chance to run down CJ last week, so we've got a load to talk about with CJ Moore of The Athletic coming up a little bit later on in the show today. Rick Peterson is going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour for this week's Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around. Dan's only going to be with us for about an hour and 20 minutes or so today because we've got the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship continuing in Class 3A tonight for sub-state action.
Yep, and I've got a drive in front of me. We are headed out to Riley, Kansas. Will be my first time in that particular community. Riley County High School hosting a 3A sub-state this year, and we've got two great games coming your way tonight. Boys semifinals. Silver Lake, the number 5 seed in the sub-state, trying to knock off the number 1 team in all of Class 3A, the Beloit Trojans. That's our first game at 6. Then at 7:30, we got Rossville, a dream season for the Bulldogs. First league title in 14 years. They're the number 2 seed in the sub-state, taking on the number 3 seed, Nemaha Central. Well, both of those games in full tonight right here in the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship, getting things started at 5:45 with pregame coverage. Excited to be there for those games along with my partner, the coach, Larry Latimer, and we hope you enjoy hearing them later on tonight.
There is precisely one person listed under the notable people section for the Riley, Kansas Wikipedia page. Spencer, do you know who that one person is?
I am drawing blanks.
Do you know?
I bet I do. Is it? Did he play for the Green Bay Packers?
He did indeed play for the Green Bay Packers, and at one point in time, Aaron Rodgers threw to this man, and it produced the best quarterback to wide receiver passer rating in NFL history. It is the one and only Jordy Nelson.
I was going to guess Donald Driver.
No, buddy. Let me tell you about how much I love Donald Driver. That's not a bad guess, honestly.
No, we could have sat here and remembered some guys for a while. We could have told him which Green Bay Packer wide receiver. We could have run through Greg Jennings.
Yep.
We could have hit Antonio Freeman. You're a little young for Antonio Freeman.
I remember him, though.
Okay. Robert Brooks. Could have reeled off. Maybe we could have go way back for like James Lofton.
I didn't remember Javon Walker was from Kansas. No, yeah. Jordy Nelson walked on at K-State, became one of the greatest Wildcats of all time, then one of the greatest Packer wide receivers of all time.
Yeah, that's a good name to know. And also now the assistant coach of the Riley County girls basketball team. Who
That's right.
Did not advance to the semifinals. They lost their first round matchup with Rossville, I believe. No, it was Rossville boys beat Riley County. Maybe it was the girls too. I'm not ready for the girls yet. That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
I'll have that all squared away for tomorrow's broadcast. But no, he is assisting his wife, who's the head coach of the sister. Excuse me.
Yes,
who is the girls basketball coach there. Sincere apologies for getting that one wrong.
Yes. Kelsey Nelson, the head coach of the Riley County girls.
Wait, so Jordy Nelson is coaching high school ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, assistant coach for his
That's
sister.
crazy.
Yeah, no, he retired from the NFL, but he spent 1 year with the Raiders, went back, retired for a day with Green Bay, and then went back to the farm.
Came back home, yeah.
I just didn't realize he was from Kansas. Like I never or I never just put it together because I've seen the videos. They've done like features on him where he's back at the farm.
Oh, yeah, he used to take a teammate or multiple teammates back for a couple days or a couple weeks every summer. Aaron Rodgers went. A number of teammates went. They always talked about Mrs. Nelson's pie. Apparently, it is the best of the best. I'm just sad I never got to go to Nelson's Landing. The family owned a restaurant in Leonardville for, I don't know, a decade, maybe a little bit more, closed right after the start of the pandemic. I never got to go. I was sad. Like, of all people to have never been to that restaurant, I can't believe I never drove an hour west to go to the restaurant.
It's not as though like Riley, Kansas has an interstate exit. Like it's okay that you never made it in that direction. I have never, I was looking at the directions. I wasn't even aware how you got there. Just go to Manhattan and then keep going, basically. Go through Manhattan and keep going.
I do remember the first time I saw it. I had made a delivery of Pigskin and Hoops magazines to a bank in, and I wish I could remember, it might have been First State Bank in Leonardville. And I get back in our station car. I look across the parking lot and said, Nelson's Landing. I wonder what that is. Oh, I know what that is. I know exactly what that is. So yes, Dan will be out in Riley tonight for our Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Dan and the coach will be out there for that game. So, that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're making the trip out there tonight to watch the games, say hello to us at our broadcast table. We'll be there.
Yes, please do. Silver Lake, Rossville, both going to be out there. Should be a lot of fun. I will have the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show tonight at 6 o'clock until 7 over on our sister station, Country 1069. We'll have some more sub-state basketball coming up tomorrow on the Road to a Championship. So a lot of basketball action coming up the next few days here on 580 WIBW and the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations. You can hit us up. The text line is back.
Yes,
all right. Oh, man, I wish we had Don't Stop the Party queued up. The text line is back. You can hit us up. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. You can also join us on the YouTube stream. Head to YouTube, search 580 Sports Talk, and you can drop us a line. Make sure you subscribe up to 450. Good work, gentlemen. 450 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So you can head over there. Make sure you subscribe, and you can check out the live stream today or any of our past videos as well. I'm going to tell you something real quick about the YouTube feed. We like to keep you guys informed about things where, we try to branch out and have as much, as many different ways as you can consume us as possible. And we do recaps of every KU, K-State game that we go and cover. I did one from the KU game the other night when BYU upset KU. We have found, Dan and I have noticed this over time, when our local teams lose is usually when we do the biggest numbers on our post-game video. Like even you're like, yeah, plenty of people watched, but more people watch when our favorite teams lose, especially KU. The two most watched videos we've ever done is when KU loses a big game. BYU fans, though, I'm going to give y'all credit, Cougar fans. Very, very nice. Probably the politest group of opposing fans that we have ever dealt with. Just very kind. Like, man, what a great environment. That was a tough win for our boys. You guys got a great team and a great coach.
Really, we were a little lucky to win.
Dave, y'all are really nice. We're very complimentary of me, of KU. It was appreciate the BYU fans. I stick by it. I was glad BYU was added to the conference. And you know what? I'm sticking with that. Very polite fans. Whereas when KU lost to Arkansas last year in the NCAA tournament, Dan and I were just joking about this yesterday. If we hadn't been so complimentary of how well Arkansas played, they would have found our address.
Yes.
They would have found where we live.
They would have mailed us animal leavings. 110%. It would have been vicious.
Yeah, they were a little more intense. The BYU fans, though, very pleasant.
We called off the Hogs.
Big time. Yeah.
Whether we knew it or not.
I swear we're being nice about Jordan Walsh. I promise. I'm going to say nice things about Muss. I promise.
I had 40 minutes to say not nice things about him sitting next to you in the press box. I could spare a nice thing or two in the reaction video.
So you can find all
that.
Whereas
mother might hear it.
Right. You can find all that on our YouTube channel. Again, it's called 580 Sports Talk. Wanted to touch on the Chiefs here as we open up the show today. Our pals over at Arrowhead Report, obviously we talked to Jordan Foote a bunch here on the show, but one of his co-workers over there, Zach Eisen, he put together classic off-season content, 5 potential offensive free agent targets that the Kansas City Chiefs should go after. I would sign off on 4 of the 5. I think 3 of the 5 would be legitimate possibilities. We'll just go right down the list here. Number 1, and what a great mind meld here. It's a name that the one and only Spencer Dupuis brought to us just the other day as a potential
Commanders insider Spencer Dupuis was on this from an early stage.
Running back Antonio Gibson. Zach Eisen writes, Chiefs backup running backs Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon are both slated to be free agents. Adding another experienced back to take the load off Isaiah Pacheco makes a ton of sense. Gibson is a seamless fit into the third down back role. Every year of his career, he's had at least 35 catches and has been one of the best pass blocking backs in the league. The value he could bring as a pass protector would be immense, with McKinnon's future uncertain. Lastly, the Chiefs know about his profile and his possible fit, as he played for Eric Bieniemy last season. So this is the one of the four I said I would sign off on. This is the one I think would be the least likely, just because running back is the position the Chiefs have been much more willing to draft, late day 3, take an undrafted free agent. I mean, look at what they did last year in undrafted free agency with Deneric Prince. Look at drafting Isaiah Pacheco with a 7th round pick 2 years ago. Now, McKinnon was a free agent. He was also dirt cheap coming off of all those injuries and never doing a whole lot when he was in San Francisco. My goal for the Chiefs would probably still be to bring back Jerick McKinnon, because he's a fit. He brings a style of running and catching that you don't have with Isaiah Pacheco. That being said, I do think Gibson would be a good fit. And depending on the price, I would be totally content with that. You need to be a top-tier pass blocker, pass protector as a running back if you want the Chiefs to bring you in for that RB2 role. And if Gibson can do that, seems like a good fit to me. So I would sign off on that one. But again, the price is going to be the biggest sticking point.
And I think that's the running back market right now. I think with Gibson's ability to do that, pass catch and run, he's going to get some good contract offers, although the takebacks on him is he fumbles. He has a fumbling problem in his career.
It fits right in with the Chiefs.
He's been benched a few times because of it. But I do think that he'll, get a decent number as a younger running back. I mean, there's so many questions in this free agent class and running backs. Like Derrick Henry's going to be a free agent, but he's getting older. A lot of these guys are getting older. He's pretty young comparatively to a lot of the high-end running backs that are going to be free agents.
That's an interesting point. And when you mention the class of free agent running backs too, Spencer, it's a big class. Like there's a lot of options. And that could mean that a guy like Gibson maybe gets lost in the wash a little bit and doesn't get like a multi-year contract offer. It might be what happens to him, maybe similar to what happened at a different position, but what happened to a guy like Drew Tranquill last year, where there were free agent options at linebacker, and Tranquill was kind of a guy that got lost in the wash, ended up taking a 1-year deal, and obviously that worked out great for the Chiefs. I think if Jerick McKinnon plays in the National Football League in 2024, it should be as a Chief. I think the Chiefs would need to find out where McKinnon stands on continuing his career. And because to me, he fits what they need, and he's a comfortable fit in the offense, in the huddle, in the locker room, all of those things. That. If McKinnon's not going to be back, they're going to need a running back anyway. And like I've said, I think they're going to take 1 day 3 of the draft. But if McKinnon isn't going to continue his career, or for whatever reason isn't interested in coming back to Kansas City, Gibson does feel like, in terms of what he would probably cost and what he can probably bring behind Pacheco, as good a fit as any of the free agent backs out there, I think.
Yeah, So I think that one makes sense, but again, we'll just see how the Chiefs end up wanting to spend in that position. Next on the list, one that I've brought up before, I like this one a lot. Wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, most recently of the New England Patriots, has also played for San Francisco. The writing here, in part, adding a proven veteran wide receiver may be a top priority for a Chiefs this offseason. They still need to add young talent in the draft, but getting a stabilizer for the room is imperative. Bourne would provide that for the Chiefs. He's been a reliable chain mover for years now. It feels like a perfect fit to me. Like a guy who, he's not going to be your 75-yard touchdown threat. That's just really not the player that Kendrick Bourne is. But you can get a guy who can get you 8 yards a catch, who's going to catch, 40 balls for 500 yards in a season. I know that's more than 8 yards a catch, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Like someone who's just going to be your classic possession receiver. Now, he did tear his ACL, which is not as big of a death sentence now as it once was for the career of wide receivers, but that is obviously something that is going to come into play, probably going to keep him pretty cheap as well. I would love to have a guy like Kendrick Bourne be wide receiver 3 for this team. You draft a guy, you've got Rashee Rice obviously is number 1, Justin Watson is still around. You have Bourne there as just a veteran who's going to be usable in obvious passing situations, decent hands, decent route runner. That feels like a good fit for me. I am all in on Kendrick Bourne being your veteran fill-in receiver this year.
You're looking for reliability, I think, to flesh out the receiver core after unreliability was kind of the thing that highlighted this year's receiver group.
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick Bourne, his career has caught over 2/3 of his targets. That, to me, is the kind of reliability I am looking for from a veteran receiver. In contrast, MVS has caught like half the targets that have gone his way in his career. So there's a pretty stark difference. Different kinds of players, like you said, like Bourne is not a deep threat. He's not a guy who's going to take the top off of a defense. And certainly coming off of an ACL, you wonder how much that's going to compromise his athleticism as he enters his late 20s. But he was en route to having maybe his best season of his career when he got hurt this last year. So if he gets healthy, and the ACL is certainly not a career death sentence the way it used to be, it's something you can recover from, a little more common to get back to a previous level of performance after that injury, then yeah, I think he can be a 50 to 60 catch guy for the Chiefs next year. And they need that because you saw what happened when they lacked that sort of reliable target this past season.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. There's another wide receiver he's got on the list, which again, I would be happy to bring this guy in terms of talent, in terms of style. I think the price tag might be a little bit higher than what the Chiefs are willing to do in free agency, though. That's Darnell Mooney, the former Chicago Bear. 3 years, so not 2024, not 23, or I'm sorry, not 23, not 22. But if you go back to 2021, in his second year in the league, Darnell Mooney went for over 1,000 yards. He has not gone for over 1,000 yards combined the last 2 seasons, which is alarming.
Should his contract be that big?
Well, there's the other question. This is one of those players where I feel like the perception is higher than the actual quality of the player, which also fits the Bears quarterback over the last 3 years as well.
You know why people love receivers like Mooney? They're fast. So the idea is, here's the guy who can, if I can use the same term I just used seconds ago, take the top off the defense. Here's a guy who can go long. Here's a guy who can catch that 75-yard touchdown. It's easy to dream on speed for wide receivers, much more so than like the everyday competence, the work-a-day, 12 yards a catch, but I'm catching all my targets type performance that Kendrick Bourne gives you.
Yeah, see the perception versus his numbers. I mean, he only played in 12 games last year, but not even 500 yards, just below 40 catches on the season. He only has in his 3 seasons 10 career touchdown catches.
Yep.
11 career touchdowns, including the rushing touchdown he had. So that's a interesting guy to look at to see where the contract figures his market value, where things come out.
The other part of the context there, of course, is he had a really bad quarterback and a bad offense in general. Mooney's the kind of guy where if he was able to slip through the cracks and you get him on that second wave, because the first wave is the guys who are essentially signed during legal tampering. Right. And then those deals become official right at 3:00 Wednesday.
Like the first 2 days of free agency. Those are the days where we decide who wins or loses free agency.
Of course. And then that next 4 or 5 day period going through the weekend, that's usually the second wave. And then third wave of free agency is, guys who sign between the middle of March and camp, or at least before the draft, but after that first week or two in March when the new league year begins. That's that third wave. If Mooney slips through to that second or third wave, and you're now looking, instead of at a 3-year fairly lucrative contract at we're going to get him for 2 for a pretty affordable price, I would certainly be more interested in Mooney there, because then you would be able to get some sort of different look with that guy who's more of a true vertical threat than I think Rashee Rice is, even though Rice can stretch your defense a little bit. But I'm certainly intrigued by both of those. 2 offensive linemen are on the list real quick here. First one that I would say a yes on is Josh Jones, who has played right guard, right tackle, and left tackle in his career in a couple of different spots. He's got over 250 snaps at all 3 of those spots. He's also played 63 snaps at left guard. He can play anywhere but center, essentially. To me, with Nick Allegretti becoming a free agent, you need that guy who can play on the interior. Now, granted, Allegretti can also play center, which you wouldn't get here with Jones. Chiefs need offensive line depth. We've talked about that already this offseason with questions at left tackle, with Allegretti becoming a free agent. Darian Kennard is no longer in the building. You've got to have some depth on the offensive line. Got to.
Yeah. Joe Thuney not getting any younger and coming off of an injury that can be a hard one for a lineman to come back from. yeah, they're going to need a steady, I think, veteran hand, and that will even increase in importance if they do give the left tackle job to a younger player, whether that's Wanye Morris, whether that's a rookie they take at 32 overall or late in the first round. I think that there's a lot to be said for having a veteran who has played some NFL left tackle on the roster, and more left tackle than like Prince Tega Winogo has played NFL left tackle.
Yeah, good point. It's not a guy who pretty much has zero real experience. The final one, and I would say this is a no for me, is Mekhi Becton, the former Jet. Mekhi Becton, when he's been on the field, has been, well, early in his career, he was really good, and he's still pretty young. He was really good. The problem is early in his career and when he's on the field, he has had so many injuries over the last 4 years. And when he was able to get out there this year was not very good, probably because A, he's gigantic, and B, because he's had all those injuries. So that's one. If I'm looking at a future left tackle for the Chiefs, I'm saying no one. There's just way too long of an injury history with Mekhi Becton.
It's an interesting.
He hasn't even played a full season ever in the NFL.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's an interesting parallel that Zach Eisen, the author of the piece, draws, that the Chiefs have never been shy about taking chances on talent, even if the talent hasn't worked itself out. Like Kadarius Toney's a great example of this that hasn't really worked out.
True.
Mike Hughes was a guy, a former first-round pick that they picked up, and they got some decent football out of. There have been some other, who was the linebacker?
Darren Lee.
Darren Lee, yeah. They picked up, and that didn't really work out. But it has been in the Chiefs' MO to take some shots on some guys with first-round talent that haven't produced like first rounders if they can get them for fairly cheap. I don't know what the market for Becton is going to look like, but if they could do a year, like a pillow contract or a prove it deal for Mekhi Becton and bring him in and give him a little competition for Wanye Morris at left tackle, I could sign off on that. I could see the vision there.
All right. If you could get him for that cheap, okay, I would be certainly more interested. I guess I've been under the assumption that given his pedigree, you would have to pay a little bit more of a premium, and
you might have to. Again, like
situationally dependent.
There's a lot of teams with a lot more money to spend than they thought they were going to have because the salary cap went up. So I think the thought of a bunch of guys on 1-year contracts like the Chiefs were able to do last year, I don't know how realistic that is this year given the expanded salary cap, but that would be one guy I would say, hey, look, I'm not going to get a bidding war for Mekhi Becton, but if he's still out there day 3 or day 4 free agency, I'd call his agent.
All right, fair enough. I'm willing to revert or adjust my take. I think that's certainly fair. Coming up on the other side of this break, a Chiefs free agent player leaving the Chiefs is in a little hot water. Y'all talked about him a little bit yesterday, but we've got some more details about the Mecole Hardman situation with the Jets that, frankly, is more funny to me than anything else. That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. before we get into the details, we can all agree that the fact that there's a scandal involving Mecole Hardman is the funniest player who could be involved in a scandal.
Objectively,
right?
yes.
Yeah, like
Yes.
that's utterly hilarious.
Milking his 15 minutes of fame as well as any professional athlete I can recall.
So you guys got into the details about the Mecole Hardman situation and the alleged, maybe possible tampering yesterday. We don't need, to rehash all of that. But I do think it is worth bringing this up. So along with Mecole Hardman talking about how bad his time with the Jets was and claiming that he had reached out to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to say, hey, come get me, then having to step back and say, wait, no, I did not do that. Let me correct the record here. Trying to avoid the Chiefs getting in trouble for tampering. How about this from Connor Hughes, who writes about the Jets? He says on Twitter, yes, I'm told there was validated belief from the Jets that wide receiver Mecole Hardman, frustrated by his lack of usage, leaked game plans to the opposition, as was implied by several players, including both Sauce Gardner and Kenny Yeboah. Not just details of their game plan for when they played the Philadelphia Eagles, but also for when they played the Kansas City Chiefs. Ironically, the Eagles' victory was arguably the best of the season for the Jets, while Zach Wilson had his best game of his career against the Chiefs. That is extremely funny, along with the fact that it's Mecole Hardman, period. The fact that you are talking about probably the Jets, two of their best games of the entire year were apparently the games where he leaked the info.
Is that Wilson's best games?
Yeah.
Right here, a lot of screens, and Zach Wilson's probably going to.
Mecole Hardman. Like, this is the guy who skipped out on off-season workouts to go bowling and to go check out the Kansas City Zoo. Like,
This is true.
do we really think he was all that worried about the details? Because that would indicate to me no.
Yeah,
Went to the zoo. You remember that drama? That was
do.
funny. What was that, 2020 maybe?
what a goofus! What a delightful goofus!
Oh, I mean, delightful for the Chiefs because he caught the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl.
He's Mr. Walk-Off, man. You can cake off that forever.
I mean, discounting the IQ like 80% below the average American male, like he's football Forrest Gump. Like he has all this success, stumbles into a payday, somehow gets out of it by being a dope, and then stumbles right back into more success. Factors into somehow the Aaron Rodgers drama, the Tyreek Hill drama, winning another Super Bowl with a redemption arc. Like it's football Forrest Gump, except he didn't get called, the fastest what that Bear Bryant's ever seen. Although he is actually incredibly fast. That's the entire reason the Chiefs drafted him in the first place. Like that was his entire year, was just being football Forrest Gump. I don't know, man. I sort of do believe that this happened. Again, just considering all the different people who were involved in this.
But if it did happen and it resulted in Zach Wilson playing great and the Jets offense being able to do whatever it wanted in both of those games, like what conclusion then do we draw about the usefulness of having the other team's game plan?
Yeah.
I think that's certainly a fair point to bring up. I think it is also fair to bring up that Nathaniel Hackett's game plan probably wasn't all that good in the first place, because if you could leak the whole thing and the results were still completely random, what does that tell you about the way they were planning for games?
Like against the Chiefs, the Jets looked like a clown show for the first 30 minutes of football. And then Zach Wilson blacked out in the third quarter. Just completely like Will Ferrell answering the debate question in Old School. Just a stream of consciousness, and then he woke up.
Yeah, pretty much. When's the last time that, not in terms of alcohol, but when's the last time you just blacked out? Like something just happened and you do not remember it at all? For me, it's very easy. For me, it's when I proposed to my wife. I do not remember what I
could see
said.
that happening. That would make sense.
I remember her face when she realized what was happening. I remember crouching down. I do not remember a single word I said. I remember being there in the moment. I remember what was going on around me. Actual words, though, no clue. No idea.
Yeah, I didn't have anything planned either. I just started talking and pulled the ring out. Like,
Y'all's was a positive moment. Mine's a negative moment.
Oh?
When I was laid off my last job.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
People are like, how did it happen? What'd they say? And I was like, after the words were,
Yeah.
after, like, I
go
just
into-
remember the words.
yeah. You
Yeah.
go to a,
That you've been laid off, unfortunately.
you go into
Like, that's all I
a
remember.
fugue state after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in a few of those. I've been in a few situations like that too, Spencer.
Yeah, so just thought we should get to this note on McCole Hardman. I found it extremely funny that this was the case. By the way, one other note, just while we're finishing up some Chiefs chatter here. Chris Jones was a guest on the Pardon My Take podcast this week. And they brought up the first topic they ever talked about on that podcast was related to Chris Jones. That podcast debuted in spring of 2016. Do you know what might have been going on with Chris Jones in spring of 2016?
Was that the combine?
His manhood popped out of his shorts at the
That
combine.
was what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing they talked about on that show. And they brought it up to him today. They're like, hey, do you remember when your penis fell out? He said, yes, I remember it a lot, actually. People still bring it up to me. I'd play audio, but it's R-rated. We can't play it. But yeah, that is one of the funniest things to ever happen in the history of the NFL. It is probably the funniest thing to ever happen at the combine.
Still kind of feel bad for him, honestly.
But again, I mean, yeah,
That's
I feel very
That's
bad.
tough.
But again, like, if you were going to pick a player who could overcome something like that
Yeah.
and take it in stride,
Yeah,
it's probably Chris Jones.
If anybody can 8 years later laugh about their schmeat being on full display at the NFL Combine, probably him.
It was just hanging out there for everyone and God to see.
Yeah,
Really, really
not
funny.
in a flattering way either.
No, I mean, he fell on it, man. That hurt.
Yeah,
That would really hurt. There's a reason they've got compression, man. Yeah,
not
not
compressed enough.
clearly not compressed enough. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, Lance Leipold spoke today. He got his big contract raise yesterday from KU. Travis Goff also spoke. We'll hear from KU's director of athletics coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the show today. But an interesting quote from Lance Leipold. And in this business, it's important to be cynical of what you hear and of what coaches tell you, what even media members tell you. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I'm curious where you guys land on the cynicism scale in regard to a quote from Lance Leipold today. We're going to get to that coming up here on 580 Sports Talk.
Did
Brendan, Dan, and Spencer here with you on 580 Sports Talk, with you until 5:45 today, when we'll be off the air for the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Little sub-state basketball action from Riley County High School tonight. Mark on YouTube says, Brendan still hates McColl, but deep down, you like him a little bit, right, Brendan? I mean, it was more fun to talk about a Super Bowl win than loss. I know that's for sure. It's not personal. I just don't think he's very good. And I think he's kind of a dope. But hey, he's won a couple Super Bowls, made a bunch of money, he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
I would call him a bit of a space cadet.
Yeah.
Somebody who's just a little bit out there.
Oh, yeah.
Not in the way that like Sammy Watkins is a space cadet, but in a different way, in that he thought he was from space.
Yes.
Good old Starship 14. Like, there are different ways.
Praise Amen.
There are different ways to be what you would call a space cadet. And I think that, hey, I'll see you in a little bit at camp, but I want to go to the zoo. Like, that is space cadet behavior.
It was an all-time day. I think it was just you and I on the show. I think Jake was out for some reason when we broke down Sammy Watkins being in the cult of Lord Amen.
Yeah, we did.
All-time day.
We did a whole segment on that.
On the Mentellect. That was the name of his cult. Just an all-time weird
I
guy.
hope he's doing well. I hope I hope Sammy is doing well.
I hope so too. I'm sure he's all right. I hope he's all right. Lance Leipold spoke earlier today. Both he and Travis Goff spoke earlier today. And again, we'll hear from KU's AD coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of the show today. But it was about Lance Leipold getting a new raise in his KU contract. Not a surprise with that at all. But here's the big quote that came out of this. Every KU beat writer shared this quote today when Lance said it. And the paraphrase here: if it were about money, we wouldn't be here. If it were about how much money Kelly and I can make, I don't know if we would have been here last year. Kelly is Lance Leipold's wife. That is a very telling quote, I think, for a few different reasons. One, I have no reason not to believe Lance Leipold. We've talked to Coach Leipold before for a few media days in a row now. He shoots you straight. He told us the very first time that we met him, the very first time that he spoke to the media after being hired as KU's head coach, he said, look, I'm not flashy, man. I'm not going to be this great quote all the time, but I'm just going to shoot you straight. I'm going to tell you how I feel, what I think. It might not always be interesting, but there you go. And I think he's actually been very interesting when he gives quotes and speaks to the media. He's always very thorough when he answers. I have no reason to doubt that he means that. And when you say, if it was just about how much money my wife and I could make, I don't know that we would have been here last year. Do you remember the drama last college football offseason and a certain school where he once coached that was looking for a head coach, and the rumors for 3 months that they were going to be looking at Lance Leipold? I remember Nebraska. Yeah, I remember it quite well.
I do too, but at the same time, always felt like Nebraska was going to go with Matt Rule.
I thought so. As worried as I was, I mean, that always felt like the most natural fit.
But we don't know how far, if at all, discussions between Nebraska and Leipold advanced. We don't know if there was a dollar amount that was floated out there. And like you said, certainly the tenor of Leipold's comments suggests that somewhere out there was an offer to coach somewhere else that was beyond what Kansas was paying Leipold at the time, which was like, he made $5 million last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to imagine there was a school out there willing to go beyond that for him after he took Kansas to the Liberty Bowl 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm. Or this year, going to and winning a bowl game. And we remember that Sunday afternoon when things suddenly got very weird, when, hey, we could really use a quote from Lance Leipold saying, I'm not leaving and going to Washington. Like, please, someone, anyone, KU, can you give us any sign of life at all? Because there's a lot of rumors, whole lot of rumors swirling around right now. And again, Jed Fish was always tied to that job, but Lance Leipold's name was not taken out of the running until the very last day of that entire situation. I can understand being skeptical about this quote because, frankly, when you've got a guy who's already made a lot of money say it's not about the money right after he gets $1 million per year raise, I can understand if it feels to us like, okay, that's kind of a hollow quote, and it might even sound to some people like it's just out of touch. But that being said, Lance Leipold has gone on the record. I believe it was with RJ Young of Fox Sports. We went on a podcast with a video streamed show, and he said, look, we tell our guys, do not make all of your life decisions based on money. There are other things that should be involved here because you're always going to be chasing something and you're never going to feel like you're in the right spot if all you're doing is chasing after that when it comes to NIL deals or pro contracts or whatever it is. He has come out and said that himself. And I understand, he wants to be paid what he's worth. And let me be clear about this. I think Lance Leipold is worth all this money. And what he is bringing to KU, what he has done for this program, I've got no problem with KU paying that money to him. But I'm curious where you guys land on the skepticism or cynicism scale when it comes to this quote, saying if it was about the money, we wouldn't be here. That he just wants to be at Kansas for the people, for the program, for what he's built, for what Lawrence is to him, etc. How believable do you think this quote is, essentially?
Well, he wouldn't be there today if it wasn't about getting a raise. He wouldn't have spoke today.
True.
If it wasn't about getting a raise.
That's certainly true, and I think worth bringing up.
But the raise also helps him attract coaches.
Yeah, it's about an offseason where KU has lost its offensive coordinator and its best recruiter, and now its star offensive line coach. Being able to have that money to keep guys around is a big deal.
Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm. I think that's entirely fair.
The increase in the pool for paying assistance is probably just as important for the long-term health of the program as giving Leipold a raise in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It is remarkable that Leipold now is the third highest paid coach in the Big 12. Who would have thought that Kansas would have the third highest paid coach in a 16-team football league? That is fairly remarkable. And when we touched on this briefly, just the bare bones of it, before there was a press conference. We mentioned this in headlines on yesterday's show. And I said, all of the things that are happening at Kansas right now are Travis Goff and the athletic department deciding this is our opportunity to ensure that the foundation we lay right now with Lance Leipold and moving forward for this program, we are never going to go through what we went through from 2009 to 2021 ever again. That is never again going to be Kansas football. What Kansas football is and will be based upon the foundation we lay for it right now. And we have to position ourselves to lay the best possible foundation, because wherever they end up in the competitive hierarchy of the Big 12, there is an acknowledgement that it can't ever be that again. It cannot ever be what it was when Gill and Weiss and Beatty and Miles were the head coaches.
And Goff talks about that. He kind of talks about believing, you'll hear it later on, and right around 5:30, he talks about being a top 20 program. And this is what you have to do. You have to invest in your team. You have to invest in the coach and the coaching staff. And he's kind of trying to get in front of the new landscape of college sports.
Yeah, Lance Leipold, I think, I don't know. It's hard to say deserves when you talk about a ranking of who's making more money, because so many different things get put into the mix. But honestly, when you look around the rest of the coaches in the Big 12, Chris Kleiman's a superstar of a coach. Mike Gundy's been doing it for 400 years. Like, these guys are good coaches. None of those guys had to turn around a program like how bad KU was a few years ago. Like, we've all seen the numbers. We know the history. Lance Leipold jokes every single time KU wins when someone gives him a stat. Hey, did you know this is the first time since, in third time in program history your team has been to a bowl back-to-back years? And then he makes a comment like, wow, I should have done more research before I took this job. Like, that happens every time KU wins now. Someone mentions a stat like that and he comes back with that joke, and it's very funny every time. But I don't know. I have a hard time complaining about him making that much money when he's done what he has done for KU. I've got no problem with it, to be completely honest with you. One other KU note, by the way, before we get to the top of the hour, very funny quote from Bill Self right now. KU is speaking at the moment as they get ready for Baylor on the road in Waco this weekend. I really don't feel great about that game, by the way. Bill Self had someone ask him if Caitlin Clark could play for this KU team this year. What do you think his response was?
I'm sure he tried to be as polite as possible.
Have you watched us shoot it?
to Caitlin Clark, not to his own players.
Yeah, and then added that he thinks she's very impressive, and yes, she absolutely could play for this KU team.
Also, another good bite. This was from Matt Tate. He posts just literally a moment ago. Self compared the BYU loss to a football game where you lose by a field goal but drop 2 touchdown passes. He added it wasn't good enough, and they did some things that they didn't typically do.
100% right. I think we kind of touched on that yesterday, that it was like KU probably beats BYU 8 or 9 out of 10 if they just play each other. It was an aberrant shooting performance for KU, and BYU made 14 3-pointers.
BYU made 14 outscored KU by 30 at the 3-point arc, and KU missed 12 free throws.
Yeah.
Including 9 in the second half and an 8-point loss. Hunter Dickinson alone missed 9. He was really bad at the end of that game. We'll talk more about this with CJ Moore coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. I'm trying to get over it. I'm really having a hard time getting over it.
That was a bad one. That was, because it's at home, it feels worse. Like if that game had happened at the Marriott Center, you just go, yeah, that's life on the road.
Yeah, it's life on the road.
But
in the Big 12.
For that to happen at home makes it feel worse than like even losing to UCF on the road.
Up by 12 in the second half at Allen Fieldhouse, and you lose to a team that has been there like once ever before. And certainly not, I don't think anyone on the current team was alive the last time BYU came to Lawrence.
And doesn't have athletes. Like usually if you beat KU, you do it because you out-athlete them. No, they came in and they rained threes.
No, none of those dudes are very athletic.
No.
And that's a compliment to them. They won despite that.
Yes.
I'm apparently not over it at all. CJ Moore is going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour today. Rick Peterson next hour for the high school whip round. But we will lead off the 3 o'clock hour talking some Royals baseball here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski here with you. Dan Lucero here with you. And believe it or not, Spencer Dupuis here with you as well. The whole three-man crew for at least a little bit longer today. Dan's on his way to Riley for our Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship coming up in just a little bit. 3A boys sub-state action tonight. Going to be a couple tough tests for Silver Lake and Rossville.
Absolutely. Silver Lake's dealing with the number one team in Class 3A. Beloit, 20-1 on the year. They're only lost to a 6A school. And Rossville and Nemaha Central is the other semifinal. That should be a good one. Both teams had identical records in the regular season. Nemaha Central knows a little something about winning big games. They got a bunch of kids who were part of those back-to-back state championship football teams. Abe Hilbert, Carter Hayek. They know a little something about winning.
I just saw this funny tweet. Sorry. Yesterday, Patrick Mahomes asked the media at the combine to not use his 40 overlay, and they just posted it a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, he doesn't love
and it was
to be
linemen.
of a bunch of defensive linemen running the 40 and Patrick Mahomes being
I just
slower
saw
than
that
them.
and laughed, and I didn't realize what it was initially.
Hey,
Sorry, I just kind of broke in there.
Honestly, for him, it's better that than they keep showing his picture. Like they're going to show that Tom Brady picture for the rest of his life. Like, hey, remember the schlub that you used
This
to
out
be?
of shape bum. That is true. That is very funny. So tonight, 5:45, pregame start time for our Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Spencer and I will be here together up until 5:30. I've got to dip out for the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show, so Spencer will take you home for the final 15 minutes of the program today. You are welcome to be a part of the show on the text line. It's back. Text line in action. All right. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And of course, go find us on YouTube as well. Search 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Then go check us out in the YouTube stream. You can leave a comment for us in the comment section as well.
We just got a text from the 785. Are we at the point where we use the words Royals and baseball in the same sentence with a straight face?
Yes, it's here. We're feeling good. We're excited.
Jordan Lyles, 2 scoreless innings today. We're so back.
Okay, well, I'm glad. That's one of those things. Knowing Jordan Lyles is starting is one of those things I would rather know after the fact than beforehand.
Yeah, it's usually something you can tell after the fact. You get the game on. Oh, the Royals are down 8-1 in the 4th inning. Must have been a Lyles game.
Yeah, but he's still going to pitch into the 7th because they need him to eat innings. What was the game last year?
He led the American League in complete games last year.
Yeah, he did. Wasn't there a game last year where he gave up 7 runs but still pitched 8 innings?
Yes. I think it was something like that.
I remember that very vividly, or at least the stat line very vividly. He had minus 1.3 wins above replacement last year. He was so bad. Not that that's a surprise to anyone. Let me see. Longest games Jordan Lyles pitched. Yeah, he did have a complete game. Yeah, he had a 4-run complete game last year. Not something that happens very often.
No.
He had another game where he gave up 5 runs, went 7 innings. A couple times he gave up 4 runs and went 8 innings. Yeah, that's just kind of his thing. He'll just keep pitching. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Nobody else. There were nobody else to handle those innings.
Nope.
They've done a little better making sure they got other people to handle those innings this year.
Yeah, thank God for that.
I also want to thank the texter from the 785 who provides credit where it's due. Text line back up thanks to Dan. Not sure what he did, but I know he was the mastermind of getting that thing back up and going. That is correct.
I was just thinking today as I was setting up the YouTube stream for the show, and I was looking at, wow, we have 450 subscribers. I thought, I wanted to not take it personally when I went on vacation last year and suddenly we added 20 new subscribers to the YouTube.
Yeah. We
I was
talked about this
explaining the lore
yesterday.
to Spencer yesterday.
And when Dan was gone, we added 2. So that I'm trying not to take it personally. My job is not for people to say, wow, Brendan, you're so great. My job is to make sure you guys tune in and listen to the show and want to listen to the show every day. So as long as that's happening one way or the other, that's fine.
Shout out Roy, though.
I would like you. Yeah, Roy, our chief engineer, got everything all figured out on the text line. So thank you to him.
But also it was me.
Yeah.
Oh, 100% Dan. Dan did it all.
I saw
He
it.
didn't even know that it was back up. I had to break the news on the air yesterday because
Spencer, you're breaking kayfabe right now. How about you chill?
I give it to him. That was a good rant yesterday about KU.
I saw a car. I think it was a minivan. Well, I was driving to Joplin yesterday for Washburn that had a window sticker that said, "Don't honk at me or I'll cry." And I sort of feel the same way here. Like, please stop giving all of the credit to Dan. Like, I would like a little bit. Please be nice to me. Please be nice to me. Real quick, though, before we get to the Royals, do you guys know who Tyler Owens is?
Not immediately, no.
No.
Defensive back from Texas Tech. Started his career at Texas, transferred to Texas Tech this year. Had a year of eligibility left, but he declared for the draft. He was speaking at the Combine today.
I just looked this up.
And he said that he doesn't believe in something. Space.
I don't believe in space.
That's what he said.
He said he does not believe in space, nor does he believe in, quote, other planets. And that he believes that there are some flat earth theories that include, quote unquote, valid points. We've got the audio here. Spencer, can you cue up my computer? We've got audio here.
You are queued up and we are good to go.
All right. This is Tyler Owens from Texas Tech. Take a listen to this. So it's a little muddy there. And look, I'm not going to criticize the guy for saying he's religious. That's totally fine. Not going to complain about anyone saying that. I've got my faith too. I still believe that Mars is real.
Yeah, I must have missed the day in Sunday school where they say, hey, there are no other planets. It's just this one.
He does go on to say that he was reading into some flat earth theories and thought they got some valid points.
Oh, gosh.
I will never forgive Kyrie Irving.
No, this
I
is
will
all
never forgive.
Kyrie's fault.
I will never forgive Kyrie Irving.
100% Kyrie Irving's fault.
I
He
got to
normalize this.
honestly, though, I don't believe in space is one of the funniest quotes I've ever heard.
I don't believe in space.
Like, of all the things, of all the reasons to believe something or not to believe something, fine, whatever.
Just want to take him outside at night. Be like, what do you think all this is? Look up. What do you think is out there? Do you think that like we're in a big dome like the Truman Show? Do you think there's something being projected? Like, where do you think all that is up there? How do you think that all works?
I know someone who went to Texas
Where
Tech.
do you think the moon is?
I know someone who went to Tech who, when he saw this video, tweeted, Texas legend.
Do you think the sun just like chills in like Flagstaff, Arizona for the evening and then just pops up?
It's the Truman Show. It's just painted up there. It's not real. It's the Truman Show.
Truman Show is legitimately one of my favorite movies. That's an all-time great film.
It's a very good movie. But I can't watch it and not feel like a little depressed.
Yeah, that and Idiocracy are a couple of movies that they've aged a little too well.
Yeah, Idiocracy is really funny.
Extremely funny.
What's his name? President Camacho.
Yeah.
What's the full name?
Dwight, President Dwight Elizar Mountain Dew Camacho.
Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho.
Elizondo, yeah, Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho. Yes,
it is a really good movie.
Don't believe in space.
I can't get over
That's
that.
next level, man. That really is next level. I don't believe in
I
space.
don't believe in space.
Not even I think the moon landing was fake, which, again, I don't think that, but
I think
people
that's a
have
little
for
bonkers.
years.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not actually there.
The real question is that he doesn't believe in space. What else? What kind of other conspiracies does he believe in?
No, I have no desire to find out. If he doesn't believe in space, I don't want to know what else he thinks.
He said it like jokingly to like, yeah, man, well, not jokingly, he clearly believed it, but he was very lighthearted about it. Like, yeah. I don't believe it's out there.
Fun fact about me, I don't think space is real.
DJ Reader a couple of years ago, I believe it was DJ Reader, said he doesn't believe in dinosaurs.
Yeah,
There's at least like literature out there about that
like
kind of theory.
theological grounding in
Yeah.
that. I get like Carl Everett. Remember Carl Everett, the baseball player?
Oh, I remember Carl Everett.
Yeah, Jurassic Carl. Yeah, famously did not believe in dinosaurs.
World Series champion Carl Everett. with the White Sox.
That's right. He wasn't. Yeah.
He was the DH. Frank Thomas played like 4 innings that season, got hurt, and then Carl Everett came in.
He played for so many different teams, and I assume it was because once he started talking about I don't believe in dinosaurs, teams just couldn't wait to get him out of their locker room.
He played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He played for 8 teams in 14 years, never for more than 3 seasons with any team. He got MVP votes one year.
Nicknames: Jurassic Carl or C-Rex.
C-Rex. That's really funny. That's really, really funny. All right. Speaking of baseball, perfect segue. Thank you for getting us to Carl Everett. By the way, I will say our pal Jay Hawker on YouTube says, my cousin who has a degree from Texas Tech got a good laugh out of that one. It's very funny.
No, it's outrageously funny.
I almost can't believe that it's real, ironically enough. All right. Royals baseball. I wanted to touch on this. David Lesky wrote a piece today over at Inside the Crown about all the Royals who have options this year to be sent down to AAA, come back up, and the Royals have a ton of those guys, which is valuable because then you can get guys down to AAA if they need to get everyday playing time. Awesome, fine. But it made me wonder about this team's depth overall. And I think the Royals have at least some depth among their position players. They're not, this isn't the Ryan Goins. Ryan Goins? Is that?
Yeah, Ryan Goins.
Chris Owings, Ryan Goins. They had very similar names. They were both really bad. This isn't quite like those teams where, truly they were just pulling guys off the street to get starts at third base. But is it good depth? Because just having depth is not necessarily a good thing in and of itself. It needs to be functional depth. Is the Royals' depth good depth? I think pitching-wise, the answer is actually yes. It is hard to find starting pitching depth. The Royals are pretty solid 1 through 4, and whether it's Lynch or Lyles who wins that 5th spot, you end up with a 6th guy who can be your swingman, who can at least eat some innings, or if it's in Lynch's case, can give you a pretty solid outing here or there. If you need to have a spot start for Angel Zerpa or Alec Marsh, you can do that as well. I'm actually content with the Royals' depth at starting pitching. In terms of the position players, though, I think you could make an argument this team doesn't actually have very good depth. Because you think, okay, well, look at all the guys you have who could be a DH or a corner outfield. You've got Nelson Velasquez. You've got MJ Melendez. You've got Nick Prado, who's still kicking around. Maybe he is the 26th man on the roster. You've got 3 catchers now, including Salvi, who could DH for you a little bit. You've got all these guys who could be a DH. Is that a good thing, though? I don't know that it is. And you, Dan, you've been complimented many times recently for being the king of baseball minutia on the program. And I'm curious what you feel about that, because I know you're higher on MJ Melendez than I am, for an example, because MJ to me should be a DH because God love him, he can't play the field. He's just so bad in the outfield. Velasquez is not he's better than Melendez, but that's not saying much. You'd also rather have him DH. You've now got 3 catchers. I think they might carry all of them, which means you're going to DH Salvi a bunch. It just feels like a lot of guys who are men with no country, and I don't know that that's functionally a positive thing for this roster.
So let me answer that by starting with a question that probably pretty obvious answer. Do you consider wins above replacement to be a decent way to evaluate players?
Yes.
Just to consider that there is a metric that sets a bar for replacement level. And if you are above replacement level, you're helping your team. And if you're below replacement level, you're not helping your team.
Yes.
What I think the Royals have accomplished this offseason is they have trimmed some of the fat, and they are going to have fewer opportunities for the guys who were sub-replacement level last year. Here were the guys who played games for the Royals last year. For simplicity's sake, these are going to be guys who played more than 20 games for the Royals last year, who were negative contributors. Matt Beatty was in, and this is Baseball Reference WAR. This is not Fangraphs WAR. There are different calculations, but we use Baseball Reference because that's what I have pulled up right now. Matt Beatty was sub-replacement. He was negative 0.1 wins above replacement. So he's right at the line. He played 26 games last year. Michael Massey was sub-replacement level last year. Hunter Dozier was sub-replacement level last year. Samad Taylor was sub-replacement level last year. Jackie Bradley Jr., despite being a wonderful defender, was sub-replacement level in 43 games last year. MJ Melendez was sub-replacement level last year. Franmil Reyes, he only played 19 games. I guess he doesn't really meet the cutoff, but he was still worth less than half a win last year in those 19 games. Nate Eaton was worth less than half a win last year, and Nick Pratto was worth less than a win last year in negative 1.3 wins above replacement in his 95 games.
Ew.
How many of those guys project to get significant at-bats for the Royals in 2024?
Maybe Eaton.
I wouldn't even say Eaton. I'd say maybe Massey, and I'd say MJ, but not as much as a defensive player where he was worth less than 2 wins just with his glove. So you could do a little math here. MJ Melendez worth negative half a win, but he was worth negative 2 wins with the glove. So getting a little bit back if all he's doing is playing offense for you.
Yeah.
But the rest of those guys, like those Nick Pratto at-bats, those are Vinny Pasquantino at-bats this year. So there's a bounce to negative wins above replacement back into the positives. Those Franmil Reyes at-bats are going to be Nelson Velasquez at-bats. Those Samad Taylor and Michael Massey negatives, that's Garrett Hampson, who last year was worth a little over a win, and Adam Frazier, who last year was worth a little over a win and a half. So what the Royals have added in Hampson and Frazier, those aren't sexy additions by any means, but those are guys who have, as either regulars or as frequent bench players, guys who, probably start twice a week in reserve roles, they have been positive contributors, positive wins above replacement players. The Royals have gotten rid of a lot of guys who were drains on their team last year. Nate Eaton in just 28 games was worth less than half a win. Franmil Reyes was worth less than half a win. Dozier we talked about at length last year until the Royals finally cut bait on him. Samad Taylor's not in the organization anymore. Jackie Bradley Jr. is not in the organization anymore. So you've replaced a lot of that, a lot of chaff with guys that should be positive contributors. And among the list of guys who were positive contributors for the Royals last year are guys that now the Royals aren't necessarily counting on to continue to do that, but might be AAA depth. Guys like Nick Lofton, who was worth half a win in just 19 games, or Dairon Blanco, who we're not even talking about in the outfield mix.
Yeah.
And he is 31. He's not a prospect anymore, but his defense and his speed were essentially worth a little over a win last year in his 69 games. So I do think there is more functional depth for this roster. What you can't have, and I've seen it referred to on the internet as drag factor. You can't have those guys who drag you down. You can't have those guys that pull you close to replacement level as a team. The Royals have gotten rid of some of that drag. And if you consider the defensive player that MJ Melendez is as one separate player, they've eliminated his drag factor if they're going to DH him more often. And they've replaced it with guys in Hampson and Frazier who were positive contributors last year, who were comfortably above replacement level last year. Not stars, but mind you, but also not guys who are actively hurting your wins or your ability to be above replacement.
We have a question from Paul on YouTube who asks, is it within reason to think that the Royals gave up on MJ Melendez as a catcher too quickly? I would argue no, because he was also not very good at doing that.
No, he was, in fact, pretty bad. It feels like MJ Melendez's position is hitter.
Which, you can have a long career doing that. I guess my big question for this was just, are there too many guys on this team whose best role is designated hitter right now? Because I think that is a valid concern, because if you are having to play MJ Melendez in the outfield and he is hurting your team, he's not just a wins above replacement number. Like, he's hurting your pitcher's ability to get outs. He's hurting your opportunities to get out of innings if you have to play him too much. And Nelson Velasquez is no great shakes as a defensive outfielder either, and that is potentially hurting you. I don't think Salvador Perez is a great defensive first baseman. If they've got to play him at first base, then he could be hurting your team. But more at bats for guys like Garrett Hampson over like the Nate Eatons of the world or the Michael Masseys of the world. Those things are going to help on the other end. The Jayhawker asks if Nick Pratto and MJ Melendez combined for over 300 strikeouts. I'm going to go under there because I don't think Pratto's going to get that many at bats.
To be honest with you, in a perfect
that's true.
in a perfect world, Nick Pratto probably doesn't take more than about 100 major league at bats this year because your first base at bats are Vinny or Sal, and then your DH at bats are Sal and Velasquez and Melendez and maybe Hunter Renfroe. And Nick Pratto spends a chunk of the year getting intimately familiar with the best hotels that the Pacific Coast League has to offer.
Damn.
Look,
True,
man,
though.
he struck out 40% of
No,
the time.
hey, I don't
year.
disagree. I do not disagree one bit.
I'm not rooting against any of these guys. I'm just telling you, in the best case scenario for the Royals right now, he is not going to get that many at bats to strike out that much. And Melendez, to me, his high strikeout number last year was a bit of a surprise because I think he knows the strike zone. I think that's a hitter who can cut his strikeouts. I don't have the same kind of optimism for Pratto, but I think Melendez has a good enough idea of what the strike zone is. He's not going to be Joe DiMaggio, but I wouldn't expect him with a full season of at bats. I don't think he'll strike out 150 times.
I think that's a reasonable expectation.
I'm pulling up his numbers. How many times he struck out last year? He struck out 170 times to 602 at bats last year. So I think he can get that down. I do.
I would hope so. I was just going to add real quick, by the way, a side note. It's kind of crazy how quickly the Royals went from a team that really focuses on defense more than like anything else in the entire organization to having a bunch of guys who are not good at it.
Yeah, Mike Petrello wrote about this today, actually, on MLB.com. He wrote about the teams who were projected to be the 10 best defensive teams in the league, and then some other teams he brought up at the end, and he brought up the Royals and wrote, what caused the Royals, who project 28th out of 30 defensively in terms of runs saved above average. What caused the Royals to drop so far after a strong showing last year? The projections are unsure how much to trust Bobby Witt Jr.'s turnaround, and there's the expectation that more playing time goes to weaker fielders like Velasquez, Melendez, and Renfroe.
And even Vinny Pasquantino, if you're going to get him for 150 games at first base, he is not a great fielder at first base either. He's been a net negative in terms of defensive runs saved the last couple of years.
Yeah, he's fine, but he's not better than fine. Yeah.
But yeah, you're not. Think of the great defensive first base. Like I think of Anthony Rizzo, for example, a former Platinum Glove winner. Like he ain't that at first base.
It means you better make some guys miss bats, and that's why it's so encouraging to see 3 strikeouts in 2 innings for Jordan. I couldn't even get that through with a straight face. Sorry, guys.
Coming up next, we've got either or over under. Rick Peterson will join us a little bit later on this hour. Dan is on his way to our Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship tonight. 3A boys basketball. Dan, have a good call tonight.
I will. Thank you very much. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
And we will hear from Dan and Coach Larry Latimer, the Coach Larry Latimer, coming up at 5:45 today for pregame coverage for the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship from Riley County High School. Right now, though, we've got to get to a break. Either or over under is coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Spencer still here with you on 580 Sports Talk. We'll hear from Rick Peterson coming up in just a little bit for our Lewis Toyota High School whip around. Comment here from Jayhawker on YouTube says the Royals won the World Series just waiting for the Mets to make errors and boneheaded base running mistakes. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, pretty funny that the Royals have switched in terms of their profile and the perception of them so quickly. It's for the better, I think, because I think, and I mean, you guys know how I feel about Dayton Moore. It's not very positively, but they had become such a caricature of themselves and what those World Series teams were, and just so many guys who were black holes at the plate. Oh, but he's a plus defender and a great guy and he can steal bases. Yeah, but you know what? You got to hit too. And it had driven me crazy. So maybe this has swung a little bit farther in the other direction, but honestly, I'm okay with it. If it means the Royals are going to mash a little bit more, I'm certainly not going to complain about that. Rick Peterson is going to join us coming up in just a little bit for our Lewis Toyota High School whip around today. All right, my first either or over under for you today, Spencer, before we get to Pistol. Caitlin Clark just announced moments ago she is going to forego her final year of eligibility. She's got one more. She's got a COVID year. She's not going to take it, though. She's going to go to the WNBA after this year.
I didn't even know she had the availability for another year, and she's about to be the leading scorer ever in women's college basketball.
College basketball, period. She's about to break Pete Maravich's record.
That's crazy to me that she still has another year of eligibility if she so chose to put that. If she came back, she would put that record literally probably out of any ability to ever be taken.
So I will give you Caitlin Clark or the field. We're talking college basketball here. Who is the greatest college basketball player of all time? Women's college basketball player of all time. And I'm not saying every other player combined or Caitlin Clark. I'm just saying of everyone else who's ever played, is she the greatest to ever do it?
Yeah. I mean, she'll be the number one pick of the WNBA draft.
Sure. You know, it's a tough question for women's college basketball, I think, in particular, because the sport has come such a long way.
Oh, yeah.
In the last few years. And there's more talent now than there's ever been. Then you've got players from long ago, like Pearl Moore, who there was a great story about in The Athletic today, who has the all-time small college record. She scored over 4,000 points at Francis Marion in Florence, South Carolina. Lynette Woodard, of course, the KU great, who has gotten more and more attention in recent weeks for her AIAW scoring record, the true women's college basketball scoring record that the NCAA refuses to acknowledge. I mean, Cheryl Miller was an all-time great player. Asia Wilson of recent vintage. Brianna Stewart had more individual accolades than anyone. That's why I want to specify greatest in terms of the best player more than greatest in terms of accolades, because there's a bunch of UConn Huskies and Tennessee Volunteers who probably have her beat in that regard. I mean, Iowa doesn't have a national championship, for example. Now, if they win one this year, it's going to be pretty hard to make an argument for anyone but Caitlin Clark. But if you're asking biggest star power in the history of the game, that's Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
She's the biggest player in college basketball, period. Not just women's. I mean, in college basketball, period, she's got like the Steph Curry effect when they go to visiting. I mean,
That's
selling
what
out.
I was, yeah. Like the ability, what she's done to the attendance numbers for games.
Yeah.
Like selling out games, even though it's at different arenas, like that's helping. No matter what happens, that is helping the other athletic department.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's just crazy. Like, you don't see those numbers of people in attendance at women's basketball games.
And she's
in a regular
awesome.
Season.
I mean, if you haven't gotten a chance to actually watch her, I think they're going to be on national TV this weekend when she's got a chance to break Pistol Pete's all-time NCAA record. I mean, watch her. She's a blast to watch. She's incredibly talented. And I think, too, if I may get on my soapbox momentarily before we get to your either or over under, Spencer, the talk about Lynette Woodard or Pearl Moore or on the men's side, Pistol Pete and all these players, this should be an opportunity to talk about, A, how great Caitlin Clark has been, but also how great these other players from past eras were. Basketball, and this is more so an NBA commentary than it is a college basketball commentary, but the we talk about past generations with such flippance and with such disregard for their greatness. And again, this is mostly talking about the NBA here. But like, instead of using this as an opportunity to denigrate Caitlin Clark and to say, well, I mean, Lynette Woodard did it without a 3-point line. Or, well, Pistol Pete did it without a 3-point line and he only played 3 years, so she's not really that great. No, this should be a way to talk about other kinds of greatness, not to just tear someone down or to say, yeah, well, Pistol Pete, who is he playing against? A bunch of bums. He also didn't get to play as a freshman, guys. Like, we should use this as an opportunity to talk about how there are different kinds of greatness and how Pistol Pete was incredible for his era. And what he did will never be matched because we do have a 3-point line and he did not get to play as a freshman. And we should get to talk about how great Lynette Woodard was. Again, not playing with a 3-point line in an era where the NCAA didn't want anything to do with women's sports. Just like we should talk about how Caitlin Clark has used this platform to become the biggest star in college basketball today as a woman. And you know, men's college basketball is generally considered a bigger deal, but she is this big of a star.
Her senior day now. It'll be her senior day.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So Sunday, their final game on Fox.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most expensive women's basketball game ever as they take on Ohio State. It is 2 ranked teams taking on each
Ohio
other.
State's good.
The get-in price is $491. The average ticket price per tick pick is $577.
We should be talking about how this is awesome. This is great. And also acknowledging that there has been other past greatness, not using this as an opportunity to tear people down. That frustrates me. History is important. The past is very important. We should recognize that. Spencer, real quick, do you have an either or over under?
Yeah, who is going to get the most starts this year at second base for the Royals?
Ooh.
Either Michael Massey or Adam Frazier.
I am going to go with Adam Frazier because I don't think you spend the money to go get him if you don't think he's going to play for you almost every day.
That was my take on it too.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Massey, a fellow, Chicago suburbanite, but I think I'm going with Frazier there. I think I am. That's a good one. We'll ask Dan that tomorrow as well, what he thinks on that topic. Coming up next, though, Rick Peterson will join us for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around on 580 Sports Talk. It's time for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk, and we are joined by the best of the best, Rick Peterson. Nobody covers our local teams better than Pistol. You can find his work at topsports.news. You can also, of course, go find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, what's going on, my friend?
Hanging out at State Bowling and at North Rock Lanes in Wichita.
All right, well, let's just dive right on in. We've got so many postseason sports to get to, so much love for this time of year. It is such a blast. Let's get into state bowling, Pistol. What are some of the headlines you've been following so far down in Wichita?
Well, the 6A's today, 5A is tomorrow, 4A and 1A was yesterday. The Hayden girls got fourth, the Hayden boys fifth, so a solid performance in the 4A, 1A. The Cody Spangler finished sixth. Washburn Rural sophomore finished sixth in 6A boys earlier today. And 6A girls is right now in the Baker games. And Washburn Rural was second going into that. So pretty good day, pretty good couple of days for city teams.
What was the expectation for you, Pistol, going into bowling this week? Because you've said it, I couldn't even tell you how many times on the show. Topeka is a bowling town. We know what the pedigree of bowling is like here in this city. So for the city teams, how do you feel like this year's crop down at state was going to stack up relative to some of the very successful years past?
Well, I think rural girls are very good. It was disappointing that Washburn Rural boys weren't able to qualify after winning it last year. But they just had one of those days, and it was a tough tournament. But I look forward to the 5A teams really having a good day tomorrow. I think Seaman could challenge in both boys and girls. And I think Shawnee Heights was a very close second to Seaman boys at regionals, and I think they could challenge for a trophy. So it should be a good day. And yeah, that's why I'm down here, because it always seems like somebody in the city does very well.
How deep is Class 5A outside the city this year?
I'd say pretty deep. I'd say, that's the thing about bowling. You can have a really good week, and then the next week you're not very good, and then the next week you're really good. So it kind of goes up and down, but I think it's very deep. I've seen some really good teams in the UKC, and, they're mainly 6A teams, but the good teams in Centennial League, there's just good bowling in that area.
Rick Peterson is our guest. He covers all things prep sports and Washburn sports for topsports.news. Go find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. He joins us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for our Lewis Toyota High School whip around. Before we get to sub-state basketball here, Pistol, I've got to ask you a little bit about state wrestling from this past week. Well, yet again, a great year at state for a handful of Shawnee County teams. We got to start with the Washburn Rural girls, though, Pistol. Damon Parker's team, again, no individual champions, still win the team championship second year in a row. I mean, this run that Washburn Rural Wrestling is on, it's almost beyond belief at this point.
Well, and that's the thing. I think this one was more special for Damon and the girls, because they were kind of overlooked this year going in. They lost 4 really good wrestlers to injuries. And I think that kind of got them on the outside looking in a little bit as far as the rankings and everything else. But, hey, they're just so deep. I mean, that's the thing. They just kept piling up points. And all of a sudden you're looking going into the final day and they're like up 19 points, and had one finalist, Molly Spader, who was a very strong runner-up. But then it just, they just nickel and dimed and quartered all their way to a fairly decisive win in the team race.
And how about from the county as well, a Rossville state championship in girls wrestling too?
Yeah. No, and that was crazy. I mean, Kendra Hurla is going to go down in history as one of the best all time in Kansas. Haley Horton joined her as a state champ, and basically, let's say 4 girls and they win the team title. How crazy is that? So very, very good for them. And, they were second last year, and everything had to go right for them to pull out that title this year. And everything did go right, and they did what they needed to do, and they win by a half point over Oakley.
I know, Pistol, we've talked a lot over the last few years about how big of a deal girls wrestling is in this state. And I mean, it's a state that loves its wrestling and so many women who want to get involved in the sport. The fact that now, I felt like this year, it was treated like an equally big deal to boys wrestling more than I at least have personally felt before. And that's not to, insult the boys wrestling side of things. I just think it is awesome that the girls side now has continued to become such a big deal in the state and such a big deal at the state tournament too.
Well, and the numbers just keep going out. I'd
Yeah.
like to see the participation numbers from when they started 5 years ago to what they are now. I bet it is just, tenfold maybe. I have no idea, but I just know when you walk into an arena now, there's just tons of female wrestlers, and that's fun to see.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out TopSports.news for all the best coverage from Pistol and his team from all around our local sports teams here in Topeka and Shawnee County. All right, Pistol, it's one of my favorite weeks of the entire year. Sub-state basketball across the state of Kansas, and a lot of teams from the city and county are still involved and in action here in sub-state basketball, both boys and girls. Just big picture, what are some of the teams, some of the brackets that you've been keeping a keen eye on, especially here in Sub-State Week?
Well, there's already been some, not necessarily in the county, although Highland Park, that was a surprise. Highland Park girls getting beat by Pittsburgh last night. But one that immediately caught my eye was Junction City boys getting beat by a number 15 seed in 10 points in overtime last night. There's always games like that. I had a heck of a game last night. Johnny Heights girls and Piper go to double overtime before, I think it was 67-59. Heights pulled that out. So you're right. I mean, it's just a fun. Hey, I've been telling people, I kept telling Dan, watch out for the Hayden boys once they get to sub-state, and we'll see how they do tonight. But they beat Kansas City Ward by, I think it was 18 the other night. So, they play that really tough schedule, and all of a sudden they're down to schools their size, and they seem to turn on the switch.
Just kind of what Hayden does, isn't it? You play a bunch of bigger schools all year long, get roughed up, and then you are more than ready to go when we get to postseason play. I wanted to ask you about that Shawnee Heights girls team, Pistol. They've got now a big opportunity coming up on Saturday. They'll go on the road to DeSoto. That's a really good DeSoto team, 17-3. I know you've gotten to see that program a little bit this year as well. Heights gave them a run for their money the last time, or one of the times when they played already this season. What do you think about Bob Wells' group's chance against DeSoto coming up this weekend?
Well, he made a good point last night when I was talking to him. Let's just go play because, the pressure's on the favorite, and DeSoto's definitely the favorite. DeSoto, it was a really close game the first time they played them in, I believe, the season opener. And then they beat them. The Wildcats beat the T-Birds by 29 the last time. So, you're hoping maybe they're kind of getting the big head a little bit. You can go in and surprise them. But Heights is going to need to score. They're going to need big games from KK Emmett, and they're going to need big games from Breezy Kennedy and some others. And then, you've heard me say this a bunch too. When you're the underdog, just the longer you can stay in it, the better your chances are. And if you can get it to the fourth quarter, just see what happens.
In 5A boys, Pistol, Highland Park, obviously your number one team, 19-1 on the year. They take on a Bonner Springs team coming up tomorrow that they've already got a dominant win over. I will go out and say it. I think Highland Park wins that game and makes it back to the state tournament. But is it out of the realm of possibility for me to think we could legitimately get 3 city teams in 5A boys in? Because you've got Shawnee Heights taking on Aquinas, and that's a good and big Aquinas team, but I don't think they're unbeatable by any means for a really good Shawnee Heights team with Coach Ken Darding. And then Topeka West, Dan and I were just talking about this earlier today. I know Andover won state last year for 5A boys. They also lost a ton from that team, including a D1 player in Eli Shetler. And if there's any team maybe in the whole state, Pistol, that is willing to play a game and make it as ugly as possible and would be happy to win 21-20 if they could, I think it might be Rick Bloomquist and Topeka West. Is it crazy to think all 3 of those teams might make it to state?
No, it's not crazy. I think High Park's the only gimme. I mean, I agree with you. I think they're going. I think I would be shocked if they don't go. But the other 2, I think are really going to be nail biters. I've been talking a lot with Ken Darding. He sat with me at the game last night, and I think they're just counting on their defense has kind of carried them basically all year, and their offense has gotten better. But if they can, he said they mainly just want to keep Aquinas from doing what they love to do. In other words, try to make them uncomfortable. And then you're on your home court. I expect a big crowd there. I never, it's just like Kevin Bordewick. I never count out a Ken Darting team. I never count out a Rick Bloomquist team.
What a perfect segue, Pistol, because I wanted to ask you about Kevin Bordewick's team, moving up from 5A to 6A and flipping back over to the girls' side. Washburn Rural, they dominated Wichita Northwest earlier this week, 61-24, just smoked them. And Dan told us he thought they didn't even play their best quarter at the very end of the game, and they still ended up winning by 37 in that one. They've got to go on the road down to the Air Capital to take on Wichita South tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Wichita South, really good team, also 13-7 on the year. These two teams have already played this season. I think Washburn Rural's got a good chance because, again, I like the talent. I think Madison Vickery, really talented player. Zoe Canfield, I know she's been coming back from the injury all year, but obviously you've got a talented offensive player there. And like you just said, you can never count out a Kevin Bordewick team. So what do you make of Washburn Rural's chances when they go down to Wichita tomorrow night?
I think there's two keys. They got to play a little better defense than they did the first time they played South. South was cold as ice early, then started hitting some threes and hitting some shots and was able to pull away a little bit in overtime. So Rural's going to have to do what they do best, and that's play defense. And then they're going to have you just can't count on Maddie Vickery. You just can't count on Zoe Canfield. You're going to have 3 or 4 girls at least in that 6 to 8 range, I think. And then I think you set yourself up for a win. You know, the other night, Tinley Bunk had 16 points. You get 16 points from a third option in an offense, and I think you're going to be tough to beat.
All right, Pistol, last couple of questions I've got for you as we're joined by Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Lewis Toyota High School Whip Around. What does your schedule look like for the rest of the week?
Well, I'm here until tomorrow. We got the 2 5A tournaments tomorrow. I'm gonna, as soon as this bowling's over, I'm gonna jump in the car and I'm gonna go straight to Topeka West because that's the closest I got to the turnpike, and I'll go try to catch Highland Park versus Bonner Springs at West, and then Saturday I'm gonna go to the Turnpike Tussle and catch both Washburn games, and then try to catch something after that. I haven't decided what.
All right, and let's get to Washburn real quick here, Pistol. We got about 30 seconds. What do you like for the odds for Washburn's men and women coming up on Senior Day on Saturday?
You know what? I think they'll both be good, tough games. You know, Emporia State swept them the first time, and I think you know, obviously playing at home in Lee Arena, I think the Ichabods think they have a chance to reverse that and sweep the Hornets.
As always, love to be joined by Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Nobody covers all of our local programs, both Prep and Washburn, better than Pistol. Go find his work at TopSports.news and go find him as well on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, enjoy state bowling. Enjoy the busy weekend. We'll see you on Saturday and around the high school games the next couple of days.
Look forward to it.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Absolutely fantastic stuff, as always, from Pistol. We've got to get to a break. We've got the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming up right after our national news. now halfway home on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski and Spencer Dupuis here with you today. Thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon hours with us. Dan Lucero is on his way to Riley County High School, where today we've got the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Some 3A boys action. Silver Lake versus Beloit in Game 1. Rossville will be playing in Game 2. All of that action can be heard right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9 coming up tonight. Again, pregame coverage at 5:45. Game 1 will tip off at 6 o'clock. Dan and the coach, Larry Latimer, on the call of that one. How was the, I don't think I ever asked, maybe you guys talked about it on Wednesday's show. How was your first experience on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship from Topeka West on Tuesday night, that was?
It was good. We had some minor technical issues of me not knowing how to use the equipment properly. But once we got over that, it was smooth sailing, good game. Kayvon Bonner came back for Seaman, and he made a huge impact in that ball.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player. The Bonner family has been pretty good to that Seaman program in recent years. Of course, Caden was an impact player for their state title team a couple of years ago when they won the 5A crown. We're 7-7, won 11 straight to end the year and won the state championship. That was one of the most incredible runs I've ever seen at any level of basketball.
They made a little bit of a run late in the middle of the fourth quarter, but then Topeka West kind of just pounced on them and said, we're not going to lose this game. And then they won by double digits.
Yeah, sounds like a Rick Bloomquist team. Absolutely sounds like a Rick Bloomquist team. Of course, Topeka West will be in action coming up tomorrow on the road down at Andover. And we will have coverage as well. Triple header coverage for you on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship tomorrow night. Well, our coverage will begin at 5:45 again with pregame. Dan and the coach will be back at Riley County coming up tomorrow night for 3A girls action. Meanwhile, Spencer will be at Topeka West, where Highland Park will be in action, taking on Bonner Springs. Highland Park trying to get back to the state tournament yet again, continue their streak of 5A state tournament appearances going. So that is coming up tomorrow. We'll do 3A girls, back to 5A boys, and then back to 3A girls. Triple header action coming up tomorrow from Riley County and from Highland Park. Well,
that should be exciting.
But that's going to be a blast. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. And of course, we've got the doubleheader from Riley County coming up tonight as well, right here on 580 WIBW. Don't forget that coming up tonight at 6 o'clock from Skinny Sports Bar and Grill at the corner of Huntoon and Gage, we've got the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show, our final regular season coaches show with the Washburn coaches. Brett Ballard and Laura Westling will join me for a full hour talking nothing but Ichabod's hoops. That'll be coming up tonight, 6 until 7 on Country 106.9. So join yours truly and the coaches for that. This weekend is such a great weekend of basketball. Vance says on YouTube, God, I love this time of year. I love sub-state basketball. I think this week is an absolute blast. I was telling you guys earlier in the week how much I love Thursday night specifically, because generally speaking, our city teams don't often play Thursday. Now, with Hayden in 3A now, that changes things a little bit, no longer in 4A. But with the majority of our teams in the city not playing tonight, it gives us an opportunity to go out into some of the smaller communities around Shawnee County or around Northeast Kansas, get to call some great games. We've been to Perry-LeCompton. We've been to Silver Lake. We're going to Riley County tonight. We've been to Mission Valley. We've been to Royal Valley, just to list off a handful of the schools and communities we've been to. It's so much fun. Love getting out to some of the smaller schools because, hey, just because you're not 6A, 5A does not mean you don't have great basketball. And that's going to be on display all night long for the next 2 nights out at Riley County, along with other games in town. So looking forward to that. Washburn Hoops coming up on Saturday. That is going to be fun. Washburn opened MIAA play against Emporia State, and now against their biggest rivals will close MIAA play coming up on Saturday, and that will be right back at Lee Arena as well. So jacked up for that coming up on Saturday, and I would be listening a little bit more this hour for your chance to win a pair of tickets to the final home game for Washburn basketball this year. Women still trying to hang on to that final spot in the MIAA standings, make it to the MIAA tournament this year. Big opportunity for the Washburn women coming up on Saturday against Emporia. Meanwhile, the Washburn men, they're into the conference tournament. They're still trying to bolster their resume for the NCAA Division II tournament. They, again, could use a big win, get a little revenge against Emporia State, who held off the Ichabods by 2 in Emporia earlier on this season. So, again, I would be listening throughout this hour and especially over the next 20 minutes or so right here on 580 Sports Talk for your opportunity to possibly win a pair of tickets to Washburn basketball coming up this weekend. All right. I wanted to touch on a couple of things here from the college sports world, Spencer. One, some big news from KU. Talked about this a little bit earlier on, some of the comments from Parker Brown and Bill Self speaking earlier today.
So it's Brown?
It is Brown. Yes, like Christian Brown at the Nuggets, former KU standout. It's Brown, not Braun.
I was under the impression it was Braun.
Well, there you go.
Looks
Common
like
misconception.
Braun.
What was that?
Looks like Braun.
It does look like Braun. Yes, it's the very traditional German pronunciation of it. I got super PO'd at Jeff Gundy during the NBA Finals this past year when Denver was in the finals and Christian was playing. Kansas guys, by the way, Burlington natives, played their high school ball in Overland Park. And he was saying, well, it looks like Braun, so I'm going to call him Braun. Why do we have to call him Brown? Because that's his name, you ass. God, I cannot stand Jeff Gundy. I know some people like him. I can't stand him. And frankly, as someone who has had my name pronounced incorrectly my entire life, all the time, that in particular really bothered me. It's his name. Call him by his name. It's not that hard. When I do a game, and I've gotten names wrong before, it happens. You know what I do? I show contrition and I say, hey, I want to go make sure I get the name right. I had to be corrected about a name for one of our own teams, one of our Washburn teams, just a few weeks ago because I was getting his name wrong. So shout out to Kevin because I was getting his name wrong for the men's team. But like, I want to know. I want to fix it. I'm not going to say, well, I don't want to say it, so I'm not going to call him the right name. Just, I already didn't like Jeff Gundy. I liked him even less after that happened.
I have a funny story about last names, college hoops. So when I was covering a player at Marshall on the women's basketball team, her name was Ashley St. Jean.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason, she wanted to go by Saint Jean.
Okay.
So like, she literally came up to me one day. She goes, hey, just so you know, it's Saint Jean.
Huh.
It's not St. Jean anymore. It's Saint Jean. And I was like, all right, got it.
Sure. Okay. Hey, if tell me what you want to be called, I will call you whatever you want to be called. I just have to know. Don't get mad at me if I get it, tell me, hey, you did it wrong. Here's what it actually is. That's fine. You just got to tell me. Don't not tell me. I would rather be told I'm wrong with every name I call just so I can get it right in the end. I mean, I don't want to get everything wrong. Let's not get that misconstrued there. But I want to know. So Jeff Van Gundy being like, I don't want to call him that. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. I cannot stand that guy. Truly cannot. Anyway, the point I was originally going to make, Bill Self did say it is trending, maybe, possibly, like Kevin McCullough is going to be able to go on Saturday against Baylor. Said he thinks he's doing better. He's gaining on his knee. There's a chance he could play this weekend if he's a full go both today and tomorrow in practice. I am not going to hold out hope. I am going to assume that McCullough is able to return on Tuesday next week. That's going to be my guess until I'm told otherwise.
Which is a different stance than he had either after the game Saturday or Monday. I can't remember which one. He said he would need to practice a full week before they would even think about having him play in another game because of what happened when he came back the last time and was ineffective.
Yeah.
So there's a change of stance here in just a few days from Coach Self. And I don't know if that's just media, like him talking to the media to try to put it in the minds of, getting it out there. Will it get in other teams' minds that he might play tomorrow or Saturday?
Yeah. Make them have to prepare for something else at the very least. I hope he's able to go. I definitely hope he's able to go. So that's your KU latest update. And we'll talk some Jayhawks basketball coming up here in about 20 minutes or so with CJ Moore of The Athletic for today's Big 12 breakdown. From the college football world, I have had the opinion for a long time that I am anti-playoff. I do not like the college football playoff. Spencer, I don't know where you stand on the matter. I have always been against it. I did not feel there was a major problem with the BCS. There were things that you could have fixed, sure. I don't think you had to completely get rid of the system. I think, frankly, it was ridiculous that you were going to end up picking these teams based completely on the whims of an inherently biased committee. And I bring this up all the time, but the fact that they did that stupid thing where they all brought in hats into their first meeting room and put them on a rack and say, we're taking off our hats of bias or whatever. It's just such a clown show, a complete and utter clown show, and a joke, and really just spitting in the face of what should have been a more respected institution.
See, I have the opposite opinion of yours,
Oh.
but we also did go to two opposite institutions
True.
when it comes to the world of college football.
Oh, okay. So let me ask, before we get to the news or the reporting today from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo, were you of the opinion that a playoff was going to make it easier for the smaller schools to get into the championship picture?
Yeah.
Okay, understandable. My retort to that would be, though, Cincinnati made it, and Cincinnati went undefeated, and that was great, and they deserved to be in the playoff that year. Other than that, did we ever see an example of a G5 school getting close to being in? Like, did we ever see an example, a no-doubt example, where the playoff actually made it easier for one of those small schools to get in?
No.
Yes. Like,
But
exactly.
my take is, like, you like the BCS, I like the playoff, because there's a chance if Marshall has a heck of a season and goes undefeated, they could play in the college football playoff. Doesn't matter how far they get, just getting to the playoff is huge.
So it's about the idea that you could make it.
Yeah, and I think, although success isn't sustainable at the mid-major level with NIL and stuff,
Sure.
there's a lot of good players, great players, that just aren't making it for whatever it is at different schools.
Certainly.
And the transfer portal has seen, like, there are a lot of, whether it's their sophomore and they want to play, so they go down and you can then transfer again, or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Like, there's guys that transfer to these group of 5 programs that were committed or that were on campus at Power 5 programs.
Mhm.
That have like Marshall's had some great players over the last couple of years that are transfers in. They might be 1 year, but college football is never about sustained success necessarily, because the players interchange every 4 years, no matter what.
Yeah, that's true.
So if Marshall has the ability to get into the college football playoff, then I'm all about it.
So we have this 4-team playoff system, and I can understand and totally respect that opinion. Again, I've been very pessimistic about it since it was first introduced, and specifically, again, the way it was introduced, because the fact that you don't have any sort of objectivity when it comes to putting these teams in, that is a built-in flaw to me. So we go from this 4-team controversial format. Then this year, we're going to change to a 12-team format where more teams are going to be let in, where your group of 5 programs and our group of 6, just 5, group of 5 programs are going to have more of a chance to get in, because one of their champions will make it.
I like this one, but I don't like them not even playing a game, and then what we're going to get into in a little bit.
Right. So we don't know that this system is going to work, because it has never happened before. We have never seen the 12-team playoff at the FBS level. Yes, I know FCS and Division II and Division III and the NAIA do playoff systems. I understand that. We're talking major college football here. Okay. We've never seen it work. We don't know how this system works. When you have the automatic qualifiers plus the highest group of 5 ranked conference champion. We have never seen this system work before. And yet, the powers that be in college football, the people who make these decisions, aka the conference commissioners, and now the TV executives. And this is per reporting of Ross Dellinger, one of the best in the business at reporting the business of college football. We've had Ross on the show before. He's writing for Yahoo Sports these days. There is already talk by the powers that be in college sports and college football to expand the playoff again. We have not even had the 12-team playoff yet, and there's already talk, Spencer, about expanding it again to 14 teams. And here is additionally another problem on top of the fact that we're talking about going from 12 to 14 after not even knowing if 12 is going to work and be a good system.
That's what I don't like. And it's not even, I mean, in a way, I guess it is, but like, it's not even fair the way it's going to trickle down those extra 2 spots.
Exactly. So this is, again, from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. The 14-team playoff model is being socialized that would grant 3 automatic qualifications to each of the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 automatic qualifiers to the Big 12 and the ACC, 1 to a G5 school, and 3 at-large bids. And you best believe at least one of each of those is probably going to the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic.
So 4 bids.
So you're going to get all these bids from those 2 conferences. The Big 12 and the ACC, supposedly, and this is in the bylaws, this is a legal standing, 2 of the autonomous 4 conferences are going to be treated like second-class citizens. The G5 goes from second class to third class here. And then you get more at-larges, which are, again, going to favor the Big Ten and the SEC, which already have these inherent extra powers and extra biases. We should not be in a place where we are willing to say, yes, these schools that legally are on equal footing with the Big Ten and the SEC should be treated like second-class conferences. And I understand that even feels like a high and mighty standpoint, considering conferences like, say, the Sun Belt, schools like Marshall. These G5 programs have already been treated like the second class of major college football. I understand that. They're now being pushed either further down the ladder. I loathe this. I hate this so much. And it is bringing me to a point where, as we continue to talk about realignment, and between realignment and playoff expansion and wanting to expand the playoff again because money, I guess, TV revenue,
TV revenue,
ad
that's
dollars,
gotta be it, right?
like that's it. That is it. That is the only reason why there's a want to do this. And again, a great example of why that's the case. You say, Brennan, what do you mean by that? More Big Ten teams, more SEC teams, the teams with the best profile. The teams that actually deserve it, well, let's say 3 Big 12 teams deserve to get in. Okay, well, only 2 are locked in. Only 2 are for sure, no doubt, getting in. And then it's, best of luck, flip of a coin if that third team who might deserve to get in more than Penn State, Oklahoma State deserves to get in. KU and K-State are your top 2 teams in the league. They're both in the playoff. Oklahoma State, they have a great year, though. They go 10-2. The only games they lost were to KU and K-State. They were blowing everybody else out. They deserve to get in. Well, you better hope that Penn State didn't go 8-4 or whatever, because they're going to get in ahead of you. Better hope it was a down year for Auburn. Otherwise, they're getting in ahead of you. It's a joke. It is a joke to have this new caste system in an already inherently biased setup. We don't even know if one format works. We're already trying to change it into a new format. I feel at this point like I have become radicalized to the idea of separating college football into 2 different organizations. I used to be in the camp, not that long ago, that I wanted the NCAA to all stay together and to just keep retooling the format we have now with FBS and FCS, P5 and G5, etc. I've changed my tune completely. I want the College Football Super League at this point. I want the big SEC, whatever you want to call this major group, I want them to take 30 programs and move the hell out. Go do your own thing and be on ESPN and ABC and Fox and do your thing. You can be College Football Super League. You can go be NFL Junior. You can try to recreate the NFL with a worse product. Go for it. Do your thing. Leave the rest of college football alone. And I'm not trying to cape for the NCAA here. I hate the NCAA as it's run, the people who run it, the organization of it. It is bad. It is a net negative. But I would rather have a situation like that where it's just very obvious these are 2 totally separate organizations than deal with this. With nonsense like this. You want to determine your true national champion just based on the College Football Super League? Go for it. Who cares? We've spent the vast majority of the history of college football with disputed national championships anyway. So what? What's one more? What's one more? One more era of doing that? So what? I want things to largely go back to the way that they were pre-playoff. And I understand that is a logical fallacy to say this is a better system because we've always done it that way. That is Comms 130 first year of college, very basic, argumentative classwork there. That's a logical fallacy. You know what's also a fallacy, though? Believing that any progress is good progress. We're making progress on the playoff here. Is it a good thing? Is this improving the situation for college football? Maybe you think so. Maybe you say, you know what? Screw it. Why have a regular season? Let's just put everybody into one tournament. And it's single elimination. Oh, sorry, LSU. You got upset by UL Monroe in the first round. Your season is over the first weekend of September. Tough luck. Maybe that's what you want. And you're happy to just keep expanding. Why not a 2014 playoff? Why not a 48-team playoff? Let's just make it the NCAA tournament of basketball, but make it football instead. And if you feel that way, more power to you. We're all allowed our opinions. You're allowed yours, just like I'm allowed mine. I'm just saying I don't think this is improving the product of college football. There is enough that needs to be figured out in college football. Some of it just melts your brain. The talk about NIL and the various legal cases and lobbying and all this stuff that is so boring to talk about that no one wants to deal with. More godforsaken realignment that we continue to go through. We just had realignment this week at the group of 5 level in football and at the mid-major level in college basketball and other sports. We just had it again this week with UMass leaving the A-10 for the MAC. All of this stuff needs to be figured out and cleaned up, let alone the other problems going on in the field right now. Coaches leaving for the NFL because they don't want to deal with things in college football right now. All of these myriad issues. But why would we address the root of the problem? Why would we address these ground level things and work our way up the pyramid? Let's just start at this thing that feels like a pie in the sky dream right now and expand the playoffs again after already expanding them and not even waiting to see if that system is good and if that system works. It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And if you are dying for a playoff, again, more power to you. You are just as entitled to your opinion as I am to mine. But I cannot stand this desire to continue for the sake of TV dollars, I guess, not for the sake of the product, not for the sake of the tradition, for the pomp, for the circumstance. That should mean something. It has always meant something in college sports, and it should continue to mean something. And the fact, as Dan has put it in the past, that we have now allowed conference commissioners and TV executives to become the oligarchy that rules college football, that is not good. And you don't want this to then trickle down. Because we've already heard the talk about, well, what if we just expand the NCAA tournament? We need to get more teams in. No, Jeff Capel at Pitt was just whining and complaining today about how challenging things are at Pitt and, we have to manipulate the schedule and all this. Bro, win more games.
Yeah.
That's how you figure it out. Go win more games. I'm sick of this, and it's going to hit the NCAA tournament in basketball, men's and women's. It's going to trickle down into other areas. That's not even slippery slope fallacy stuff. That's already being talked about. I just wish the SEC teams and the Big Ten teams that want to stick around, go do your own thing. Leave the goodness of college football. And I know I sound like a moral you-know-what here. I know I sound like I'm standing in some ivory tower, but I'm serious. The good things about college football are still there. They're being clouded by this nonsense, and I wish we could separate the two for good finally and just get on with our college football lives. We'll talk some college basketball later on this hour with CJ Moore of The Athletic. But right now, we've got What Is Wrong With You coming up after the break here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, Spencer, it's time to find our champion for What Is Wrong With You in the month of February. We are down to 2 stories. You and Dan got through the semifinals yesterday.
I think you could have predicted these two.
We've got
at least one of them to be in the finals.
We've got the cocaine business cards, and we've got he took the antiques and he wrecked them. I'm so mad at Dan for bringing this story to us. It's a great What Is Wrong With You finalist. I'm so mad at him for this story, though. Our cocaine business cards, I believe these were both Dan's stories this month, in fact. A guy who was busted for handing out free samples of cocaine that included... let me just get you through the story. Syed Razavi came up with a unique method for marketing his services as either a cocaine dealer or chauffeur in Calgary. He reportedly posted up outside a casino and handed out business cards with small baggies of blow stapled to them, reading Alex Lee, driver, with his contact details. While the name on the card was an alias, the other information allowed police to track him down and conducted surveillance of him for an entire month. After finally arresting him, they found 59.6 grams of cocaine in 50 baggies, a scale, and more than $1,200 in cash. He is charged with 2 counts of trafficking, a controlled substance, 1 count of possession for the purpose of trafficking, and 3 counts of possession for a crime under $5,000. He was posing as a chauffeur and giving out free coke. Unbelievable. That is number 1. Our second story, I hate this guy. A 60-year-old man wearing a kilt was arrested in Texas after he was caught on surveillance footage at an antique shop, grabbing items off of shelves and then shoving the items in his own butt before then putting them back on the shelves. I'm so appalled by this. I'm just horrified. I'm really horrified. All right, Spencer, we got to go quickly here. Who gets your vote for the month?
Antiques and rectum.
Oh, man. Why?
Because, I mean, like, what is this dude doing? He put them in there, and then he took them out and tried to put them back on the shelf.
You're probably right. This is the winner. God, I hate this story.
Like, I feel
so
like
much,
drug dealers do a bunch of dumb stuff all the time, but this guy seemed to be sober.
Yeah, this guy is the other one's a dumb drug dealer, and it's funny. But like I said when we brought that story up the first time, I know someone who did this. Not with an alias. He wrote entrepreneur on his business card, and he didn't give out free coke. But he did have business cards as a drug dealer when we were in high school. Yeah, you're right. The butt stuff guy wins. I'm so upset, though. This is probably the most upset that a What Is Wrong With You winner has ever made me, to be honest with you. But it is our winner. He took the antiques and he wrecked them. That is our winner for the month of February in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got to get to a break. We're going to cleanse this show a little bit. CJ Moore will join us for our Big 12 breakdown coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is CJ Moore, who covers college hoops for The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. And of course, go subscribe to The Athletic for all of CJ's fantastic coverage of college basketball. CJ, are you on the road again this week, or do you finally get one at home?
I'm in the bunker trying to pump out a feature. So I'm home.
How was getting to hang out with FAU last week down in Boca Raton?
It was fun. Dusty May's he's a treat. So I enjoyed the trip. Didn't spend so much time around them. Never drove a mile to see the water, but it was fun otherwise.
Well, we are looking forward to that, and of course, all the other great work from CJ at The Athletic. Let's dive right on in, CJ, because we've got a lot to get to this week. Let's start with the game from earlier this week. KU at home, leading by 12 in the second half, and lost. I mean, that's unbelievable. It's unthinkable at Allen Fieldhouse for this KU team, but the Jayhawks lose to BYU. I wanted to ask, how shocked were you by that outcome, but it wasn't like BYU came in and just massacred KU from the beginning. Again, KU was up 12 in the second half. What to you was the biggest problem down the stretch in that game for Kansas?
Just really an inability to score. I mean, I think that BYU obviously made some smart adjustments on the offensive end, and KU was switching it all 5 positions, which they usually don't do, and they were kind of hunting Hunter Dickinson and taking advantage of him in mismatches, and that was obviously a problem. But really, I think it came down to KU just making it look. Offense looked really, really hard. It looked hard for them to score. I think that when you take a guy like Kevin McCullough out, everybody kind of else has to take a step up the ladder as far as who scores and who's the go-to guy, and you start putting guys in positions to where they're maybe built to be more a third or fourth scorer, not a secondary scorer. And I think that's kind of what's happening with Kansas, or what happened in that game. And they just didn't have much confidence down the stretch. And I think kind of lacked an identity and as far as what they wanted to do offensively.
Hunter said after the game that his struggles at the free throw line were really creeping into his head by the end of it. And he said, yeah, that was affecting how I was playing and certainly what I was doing at the free throw line. Was there anything else watching that game or watching that game back that you noticed from him that seemed to be giving him difficulties? Was BYU guarding him any particular way that was frustrating him, or did it really look like it was simply just a mental issue in that game?
Well, they were really doing a good job of bringing a secondary help defender to kind of take away, post touches. And, if he were to get an angle, they had somebody there waiting so that KU couldn't throw it in, and him to get, the easy scores that the Bill Self system is usually so good at doing. But, he still got enough touches and got to the free throw line, and you just got to be able to go up there and make them. I mean, what was it, 6 for 15? Is that right?
Yeah.
That's just, it's not good enough. And obviously it got in his head. And, if he just makes free throws, they make free throws at a decent rate. It's probably a different game, but I think that played into the lack of confidence on the offensive end. Like, not only was it hard to score in the half court, but then you're getting these easy opportunities and you're throwing them away, and it just put even more pressure on the offense. And I think, that game was mostly lost between the ears.
We're talking to CJ Moore from The Athletic. It's the Big 12 breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk. You can check out CJ's work at The Athletic, and you can also find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. He joins us every Thursday during the Big 12 season on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. So we heard today, CJ, from Bill Self, and he said that, Kevin McCullough trending up. He's able to put a little bit more weight on that knee that's been giving him problems. And he's got to practice in full today and tomorrow. But if he does, maybe he can go Saturday against Baylor. I'm not going to ask you to pick, is CJ or is Kevin McCullough actually going to play in the game? But if he is able to come back before we get to the Big 12 tournament, if we're able to see him this Saturday or maybe not till next week against K-State and Houston, what would you assume KU is able to get out of him? Do you think he'll be able to probably give a full workload, or does it maybe feel a little bit more like a situation where they're going to have to put him on a pitch count, so to speak?
Well, Bill Self's not too great at minutes restrictions.
Certainly true.
I don't know. I mean, I could see a scenario where they try to limit him to like 20 minutes or something like that. But you know how Bill Self is. He gets one of those games. If he's got a guy available, he's going to do everything he can to win it, and they could really use him. But I do think once they get him back, it's important to get him back in a state where he can actually, like, play a heavy dose of minutes. And maybe they do need to be patient and not rushing him back too early, because you don't want him to have a setback. But they really, could benefit from getting him at least to play one or a couple regular season games here at the end, and then really rev it up for the Big 12 tournament and get his rhythm back for the NCAA tournament. Because obviously, when they have him and they've got their starting unit in full, I think they've got a chance to just beat about any team in the country. They've kind of shown that. But without him, there's obviously, it's not that they haven't played well in some games without him, like the Texas game they did, but I think the margin for error is just a lot less.
I would love to ask for a prediction for this game on Saturday down in Waco between KU and Baylor, but is it just too hard to make a call for that game, not knowing what McCullar's status is?
I mean, I'm probably always going to take whoever's playing at home, if it's the top half team in the league. So whether Kevin plays or not, you would probably lean Baylor. And I think, Baylor's got one advantage they have is the big fella, Yves Messi. It's a hard name to say. He is really starting to get some confidence, and his speed, is a problem for someone like Hunter Dickinson. So they've got an advantage there, and they've been a pretty good team at home, and when that's another team that when they play with confidence can be pretty good. When they don't, they can struggle. So I think early on in that game it'll be important, like who kind of gets off to the good start. But I would probably lean Baylor just because they're home.
CJ Moore is our guest here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, and CJ, transitioning over to K-State. They've now won 2 in a row. Prior to that, they lost, games by 3 games in a row by single digits. What do you think they are right now? When you look at this K-State team, do they have the ability to, get into the tournament, or are they just playing to play the rest of the year?
I mean, there's an opportunity in front of them. They've got, 3 games left, and 2 of those are all 3 of those really, I think, are, I don't get too into the quad 1, quad 2, all the bracketology stuff, but I believe those are all 3 quad 1 opportunities. And 2 of them are really, really high end ones with, at Kansas and then playing Iowa State. So I think they at least have to win 2 of 3 of those games probably to put them in the conversation, and, then probably have some work to do with the Big 12 tournament. And winning 2 of those 3s is a huge ask, but I think to even be, even have a chance, that's probably what they've got to do.
And then what do you make of kind of Coach Tang and the guys rallying around Tyler Perry and getting him in the NCAA tournament, using that as their motivation?
I mean, I don't know that you ever need motivation to try to make the NCAA tournament, right? Making the NCAA tournament should be the motivation. But yeah, whatever you want to rally around, that's fine. I think he did obviously go there to hopefully give himself a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. He was on a really, really good North Texas team last year that didn't get that opportunity, probably somewhat unfairly. That team won the NIT. Florida Atlantic, who it had some fights with, and really battles with, and was obviously the best team in that league, but North Texas wasn't far behind, goes to a Final Four. So you look back, the league was probably better than people give it credit for. So it's too bad he didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament last year, but I'm sure that, I know for a fact, talking to him in the preseason, that was a big reason why I picked K-State. He wanted to play in the NCAA tournament. So I can understand where they're coming from there.
CJ, you made the comment about not getting too much into the bracketology stuff and the quad 1, quad 2, all that. I am curious, though, do you feel, just as a fan of college basketball, that has become, and I don't really know how to phrase it, but that has become almost too much of a talking point when it comes to college basketball discourse? This could be a quad 1 win, or that could be quad 2, or they got a quad 3 loss that negates all this other stuff. It almost seems too busy for talking about college basketball. Where do you kind of land on, that being a tool, the net being a tool for how we evaluate teams during the season?
I mean, it's not a lot different than the bubble has always been a big talking point, and it just used to be the RPI numbers that were thrown out. I do think they've progressed at least in how they pick the teams and using smarter systems. The net is just like a ripped off Ken Palm, essentially, right? So at least they're using better systems to try to pick these teams. But I don't love getting too into it. I always feel like the teams that really have a chance to win the national championship aren't actually on the bubble. The bubble is a good conversation for. It's a big thing to make an NCAA tournament, and it's really, really important for coaches, and they're the ones that talk a lot about it because, they've got to make NCAA tournaments to be able to still have jobs. So obviously that they care a lot about it. But I'd rather talk about the stories of players on the teams, who's the best out there, what makes this team great, than just focus on who are the last couple teams to be in the NCAA tournament.
We're chatting with CJ Moore. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk for the Big 12 breakdown via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go check out all of CJ's great work covering college basketball for The Athletic at theathletic.com, and go follow him on Twitter too at CJ Moore Hoops. Elsewhere around the Big 12, CJ, I think we asked a version of this question a few weeks ago, but now that they've just got a couple of games left, I'm curious where you stand on this Iowa State team. They're obviously really good. And hand up, I said some not very flattering things about TJ Otzelberger going into this year, that, he's great until the calendar turns to February. They're really good. And there's no doubt about that. And I'll eat crow on that one. What do you feel like the ceiling is for this Cyclones team? And not necessarily like, okay, well, they'll make it to the Elite Eight or whatever, but does this feel like a team that can do battle with, a Purdue, a UConn, obviously a Houston, and can be in that national title conversation?
I think that might be a stretch. But on any given day, because of its defense and, kind of like Houston, it's such a hard team to play with the level of intensity that those guys defend with and the physicality. A lot of it in the NCAA tournament will be determined for maybe Houston and Iowa State. How the game is called, how it's officiated. What is it, a crew that's going to kind of let you play, or are they going to call a bunch of fouls? But in a one game setting, I think Iowa State can beat any of those teams. Now, can Iowa State win 6 straight games in the NCAA tournament? That might be hard to see, but it is his best offensive team. It's not an elite offensive team, but it's his best one so far, and it's his best defensive team too. But they've been really, really good in the defensive metrics all 3 years under TJ. So I think the first year they made a Sweet 16 and they weren't nearly as good as they are this year. So when that team makes three ball, and, shoots it well like we saw in the Kansas game in Ames, they could be pretty dang good. But I do think their ceiling's higher than it's been the last couple of years, but I'm not sure I can quite get to national title level with that group.
What's going on with Texas? Because I think relative to the other 361 teams in D1, obviously you say, yes, Texas is objectively good, but I don't think anyone going into the year would have said that in a year in which, Kansas State has had all this negative talk and they've been disappointing for what their expectations were. Texas is tied with them in the bottom half of the league, and they've struggled against the best teams in the conference this year, both at home a little bit and on the road. What kind of stands out about this Texas team? Is it a Rodney Perry issue? Is it a chemistry problem? I mean, they've got talent. They've got a couple of big-time wins this year. Road win against a ranked TCU team. They got that win over Texas Tech at the USA the other night by double figures. What is sort of I guess, again, just sort of the general question, what's up with this Texas team? What are they?
I think they're just kind of a mediocre, okay basketball team. Like, I think it's a talent issue. I don't think their talent is anywhere close to what it was a year ago. I mean, last year they had a roster that was good enough, probably maybe even to win the national championship. I mean, they should have won the Miami game in the Elite Eight, so they would have been in the Final Four. This team very easily could have made the national championship game. I think they would have probably given Connecticut a run, but I don't think the talent is nearly as good as it was a year ago. Now, if Dylan Basu would have never got hurt and that was a big thing last year too. Like during that run, like he was playing incredible, and then he got hurt, and they still probably should have beat Miami. But if he never got hurt and could have started this season and could have been playing at the level he was playing at the Big 12 tournament last year, okay, then maybe that's a different deal. But I just think, they're a team that they're like a four player team, and then the rest of their guys are just And, kind of like Kansas, like the depth, last year their depth was their top 7-8 was really, really good. This year it's like a top 4 that's pretty solid. And then after that, it's just kind of meh.
All right. Last thing I've got for you, CJ, before we let you go, and we appreciate the time as always. Right now, I know you're going to love this question. Right now, who's the best team in college basketball?
I'll go with Connecticut. I think it's a coin flip between Connecticut and Purdue, but I think Connecticut has the best talent.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. You win a national championship, you bring that much back. Klingon has obviously been great. Hurley's a great coach. Yeah, hard to argue with UConn at this point. CJ Moore covers college basketball for The Athletic. Make sure you subscribe to The Athletic. Go check out all of his great work at theathletic.com, and make sure you follow him on Twitter as well at CJ Moore Hoops. CJ, we appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the time at home working this week. We'll talk to you soon.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
That's CJ Moore from The Athletic. Awesome stuff, as always, from CJ Moore. Speaking of some college basketball, well, we got high school basketball coming up on our airwaves tonight. Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Coverage begins at 5:45 right here on 580 WIBW from Riley County High School out in Riley and in Dan Lucero and the coach Larry Latimer. I don't know the name of the gym they have at Riley County. Maybe they don't have a name for the gym. Maybe it's just Riley County High School. I don't know. But Dan Lucero and Larry Latimer, they're getting set up there for a couple of games tonight. That's tonight. We've got more sub-state action on the road to a championship tomorrow, again from Riley County and back here in Topeka as well. Saturday, Washburn at home, taking on Emporia. Final games of the regular season for Washburn men and women. I've got a pair of tickets for you. First caller, 785-272-9429. A pair of tickets to Lee Arena this Saturday for Washburn Emporia State are yours. Again, first caller, 785-272-9429. I've got Washburn tickets for you. We've got a break. Final hours coming up next. it's the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That is Spencer Dupuis, and we are here with you for... Did you just sneeze?
Yes, at the exact time you introduced me.
I looked into the screen, and Spencer's over there like, ah! Oh, my God. Brendan and Spencer here with you throughout the rest of the show today. We're off at 5:45. It's not quite a full hour left. In fact, about 39 minutes left in the show today. At 5:45, we will take you to Riley County High School, where we've got the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship tonight. Doubleheader action for 3A boys sub-state basketball. Dan Lucero and the coach, Larry Latimer, will be on the call tonight from out in Riley County. Your matchups tonight, we are going to have both of them. Game number 1 at 6 o'clock. It will be the number 1 seed in all of 3A, Beloit, 20-1 on the season, taking on the Silver Lake Eagles, who won a really fun game against St. Mary's earlier on in the week on Monday night. Won that one 67-55. Really competitive game throughout, though. So Shannon Kruger's group taking on the number 1 team in the class. Then in game 2 at 7:30, it will be Rossville, number 2 seed in the sub-state. How about that for Rossville? Taking on Nemaha Central, the number 3 seed in this sub-state. That is coming up tonight. Again, that pregame will start at 5:45. Tip-off for game 1 set for 6 o'clock. You want a low-scoring game. You usually don't get games this low-scoring in boys high school hoops. Nemaha Central beat Marysville 37-31 in their opening round game of sub-state. Low scoring in that one. Rossville put up 50 in its win. Also a fairly low scoring game against Riley County in its first sub-state game. So we'll see how that one transpires tonight at 7:30. Also coming up tonight over on Country 106.9 at 6 o'clock, we've got the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show. Yours truly is going to join you from Skinny Sports Bar and Grill for a full hour talking Washburn basketball with Brett Ballard and with Laura Westling. That is coming up at 6 o'clock over on Country 106.9. We've got more high school hoops tomorrow. Washburn basketball coming up on Country 106.9 on Saturday. K-State on Saturday. So much great basketball action coming your way here on the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations in the next few days. Don't forget, in this final hour of the show, we would love to hear from you. Text line number is 785-272-9429. And our YouTube stream comment section is open and rolling as well. Head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, and then you can go into our live stream for today. Hang out in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on anything we are talking about on the show today. We'll get to a final word right before we hear from Dan Lucero. We will also hear from Travis Goff, KU's director of athletics, and part of his press conference today talking about Lance Leipold's new extension, raise, whatever it was. He got a raise in his contract. He's making $7 million a year now. Talk about that and some other notes from KU athletics. And we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. And Spencer, that is where we are going to go right now.
Yeah, I have an almost headline. Spencer looked at this and during the show and kind of got freaked out, thinking we were going to get another video game, but I don't think so. So I follow.
Well, hold on. Time out.
Another college sports video game. I thought we were getting one.
Did you just call yourself Spencer in the third person?
Yeah, I did. For the purpose of this. So I follow the play-by-play broadcaster, the radio voice of Wake Forest, because he has ties to Marshall.
Okay.
He retweeted their sports properties account, which is basically their marketing arm for their sports broadcasts and their teams. They posted a new backstop for Wake Forest baseball. And it's an advertisement for MLB The Show 24, and it says theshow.com/college, and it has a date. And I had a momentary freak out thinking it was going to be college baseball included in the game, but it is in fact not. It is just a promotion.
Oh, bummer. That what was the one? The whatever college
MVP baseball.
Right? Yeah, that one college baseball game that people still play to this day on the old PlayStation. I had a buddy who played that all the time.
I just saw it and I was like, no way. And then I did a little more research and I was like, it's just a promotion.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, such a bummer. All right, let's get to the NFL for our first headline of the day today. A couple of different rules from updates from the Rules Committee, including one for spotting the ball. We have heard so many complaints for so long about why does a $1 billion plus industry that has all the technology you could ever want, they love to advertise and say, look at AWS and our next gen stats and all these things we can compute. Why do we still use the chain gang? Why do we still use the 10 yards of chains and the orange posts? Why can't we put microchips in the ball? There are indeed microchips in the ball, but still, you understand what we mean. So Jonathan Jones, who is the NFL insider for CBS Sports, he tweeted this earlier today, said, this could be big. The NFL tested optical tracking on line to gain rulings at MetLife Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium, and at the Super Bowl this year. If there's support from NFL team owners, we could see the chain gang become a backup as early as this coming season. He goes on to add, it's unclear what the support would be, and considering outfitting all 30 stadiums plus international stadiums might not be feasible this upcoming year, the NFL is still actively testing out the technology. Then we had, in addition to the information from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, Pelissero saying the NFL tested the optical tracking in these various stadiums. The technology isn't expected to be ready for rollout this year and will require a vote, but at some point, the future is coming. The NFL continues to vet other technological advances, including a replay system with high-res cameras along the goal line, sideline, and end line, and the SkeleTrack system to track the ball players and officials. Wearable smartwatches with haptics to support officials have also been vetted and could be used as soon as this year. Here is my question. More so than the technology in the ball, more so than marking the ball, more so than any of these things, how in the world do we not already have high-resolution cameras on the goal line? Like, of all things you could put in the stadium, how is this not included? How is this not already there? We've had great cameras for years. How is this not readily available? I don't understand. It's bizarre to me, to be completely honest with you, that we don't already have high-resolution cameras there. This is not a surprise, though, that this is coming. It was always going to come eventually. I don't see why the owners wouldn't agree to doing this. Can you think of a reason why they wouldn't?
No.
I assume they will vote to approve it as soon as they can get all the technology in the stadiums. I know it's going to cost money to do so. I don't think it would cost enough for them to say no to it.
Will that
though.
money that they're spending to do all that outweigh the money they pay for, what is it, around 16 games a week, not during the regular season, to pay for people to run those things?
That's true. That's certainly true.
Will it outweigh that in the long term? Probably.
Yeah, I would think so. I would almost certainly think so. So that technology is going to come at some point, but it might not be in 2024. So, week one, there is going to be a situation where there's a bad ball spot and the chain gang comes out and measures it, and it's either a first down or not a first down, turnover, whatever it ends up being. And everybody on Twitter is going to freak out and say, This is why we need the technology. I can't believe it couldn't be in this year. Rah! That's going to happen. Absolutely guarantee it, because it happens almost every week, every single season now.
Yeah.
But that is your update on some ball spotting technology. Maybe some big changes coming for the NFL soon. We also had, if you want to get to our next headline here, some other news about some potential rules changes.
Yeah, Mark Maskey of the Washington Post, he said the NFL Competition Committee's proposal for an XFL-style kickoff is expected to be finalized next week. Troy Vincent of the league office said, and will be presented to the owners at the annual league meeting in late March. That's in Orlando. So, different style kickoff coming.
Everybody makes fun of me. Almost literally everybody makes fun of me for how much I enjoy spring football and have wanted rules from the last two iterations of the XFL to come to the NFL. Still waiting on Sky Judge. The 2020 version of the XFL had Sky Judge. I'm still waiting on it. It was a great rule. It was so good, and it worked pretty much every time. Anyway, I'll get over that at some point. The kickoff rule last year in the XFL, so they actually got rid of it for the UFL. Yeah. They're not bringing it to the UFL, which is ridiculous. It's a good rule. It is a way to alleviate some of the high-speed collisions during kickoffs. It looks weird. There's no denying that. It looks weird. Like when you see an NFL Films video and from a Super Bowl, and you see, especially older Super Bowls, the flash bulbs all go off as the kicker approaches and sends the ball away, and everybody's running down the field at the same time. It's a great angle and a great view. A really cool aesthetic. But the XFL kickoff, for those who don't know, the kicker is alone at the 30 or 35-yard line on the kickoff side of the field. Everybody else is on the opposite side of the field. I don't remember what yard line. I think it's the 30, if I remember correctly. And everybody waits there. Return team and the coverage team. Nobody is allowed to move until the return man catches the ball and starts the return. Once he catches it, or it goes into the end zone or whatever, then everybody can run and can make a play. The intent here is to stop some of the high-speed collisions where guys take on those subconcussive hits, they get concussions, they have those freak injuries running at full speed, etc. You remove some of the long returns. Like, it's hard to get a 40-yard return on a kick like that. And there aren't a lot of long returns, but you do get more touchdowns because if you've got 10 of the 11 guys from the return team, or from the coverage team, all within 10 yards where the ball is caught, and all the guy left back there is the kicker, you get one hole, you're gone. You're running free for the end zone. It's fun. It works. It looks weird, but you get used to it. I like that. And I would much rather have that. And the XFL also had rules last year about if the ball goes out of bounds, like even into, I think it was even into the end zone, it comes out to the 35-yard line to try to force teams to kick it off and to have returns. They're just safer returns. You can manipulate the rules any which way to try to come up with a way to keep the return in the game and make it a safer play. I wish the NFL would bring it. I doubt they're going to do it, but if you want a safer alternative to the kickoff, this is an option for you. I'd much rather do this than take kickoffs completely out of the game, which we know has been a talking point for years now. I would much rather go with this. I really like the XFL rule. I wish the UFL was keeping it.
Yeah.
I'm sad they're not. Do you have a spring football team, by the way?
DC Defenders, the Beer Snake.
That's true. They do have the beer snake is awesome.
My
boy, Jordan Ta'amu, back at quarterback for the Defenders.
Yeah, let's go.
Former Chief Jordan Ta'amu, actually. He was the first original quarterback of my beloved Battlehawks. But we're on the AJ McCarron bandwagon now. Caw is the law, as we know. Continuing on with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Here is a major one from the world of college sports, specifically women's college sports. Not really a surprise. Caitlin Clark is going to forego her final year of eligibility at Iowa. She is not going to take her COVID year. She is going to enter the WNBA draft when this year comes to a close. She is projected to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft. Duh. The Indiana Fever own that pick. By the way, Indiana also had last year's first overall pick when they took Aaliyah Boston, former player of the year from South Carolina. Clark, as we talked about a little bit earlier, she has scored 3,650 points in her career. That is 17 away from passing Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete, who owns the all-time overall college basketball scoring record, 3,667 points. Clark wrote in a statement posted to her social media, "While this season is far from over and we have a lot more goals to achieve, it will be my last one at Iowa. I am excited to be entering the 2024 WNBA draft." Goes on to thank her coaches, trainers, staff, fans, etc. And she also adds, and to everyone who came out to support us across the country, especially young kids. It's crazy. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
It is like watching, especially those early days when Steph Curry truly became a superstar in the mid-2010s. She is, people overuse the word iconic all the time now, but she is an icon. I mean, she is signing hundreds, if not thousands of autographs every week for kids, for adults, for everyone at these games. I mean, it's incredible to watch the kind of gravity she has and the attention she gets. And like I said earlier, I hope this is an opportunity. Instead of people saying, yeah, well, Pistol Pete only played 3 years because he couldn't play as a freshman and he didn't have a three-point line, so obviously his mark is more important. Like, yes, it's incredible what he did. No one will ever do it like that again because you can't, because we do have a three-point line now. I get that, but we don't have to denigrate Caitlin Clark to talk about how incredible Lynette Woodard, shout out to Lynette Woodard. Always love for the Jayhawks. But we don't need to, to raise up Lynette Woodard and Pistol Pete. We don't need to tear down Caitlin Clark. We can all still agree she is incredible, and she is. She is a remarkable basketball player. And it's okay to just say that. And I think she's going to be a good WNBA player as well.
Did you see what everyone's favorite sports business reporter, Darren Ravel, tweeted about this situation?
He's such a doofus.
Like, why do you have to bring this up? Like, I get it's factual.
And for those who haven't seen it, what did he tweet out today?
He quoted Caitlin Clark's tweet and said, headline, Caitlin Clark chooses a $750,000 pay cut.
I don't get it. I think he's got a fetish for being picked on. Like, I legitimately think he's got some sort of like weird sexual attraction to this at this point.
Well, and then I can't, and I'm going to say her name wrong. I think Nicole Auerbach quoted his tweet and said, her massive brand deals will continue when she's pro. I'm beyond tired of people who should know better pretending that female stars going from college to pros is a pay cut. And then he tweets it and says $800,000 at Iowa on what is essentially a salary, $80,000 in the WNBA. I didn't say anything about endorsements. Like, I don't understand why. Like, this is to celebrate her, like what she's done in college and what she can do in the pros. Yeah, there's a salary difference. Yeah, they need to fix that, but you don't need to be pointing it out that she's taking a pay cut to go to the WNBA.
I'm just going to come out and say it. And Darren, if you want to come on the show and defend yourself, you are more welcome to. Open invite for you, Darren Ravel. He's a bad guy. Darren Ravel is a bad guy who is Nicole Auerbach is right. Nicole is a really good journalist, has been for a long time covering college sports. He is intentionally trying to make a point here. And he's I don't know. I don't know why people still give Darren Ravel attention. I don't understand why.
And then he went on to talk about peak viewership of the WNBA finals versus the women's NCAA tournament.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Give me a break. Who cares? Get a life. Meet a woman, dude, or a man, whatever your orientation is. I don't care about that. Meet someone who is going to give your life meaning other than being a tool online. What a complete nerd. In the worst way possible. There's being a good nerd, and then there's being that kind of nerd. It's just the absolute worst. Just a bad guy. She's going to be great in the WNBA, and she's probably going to make an unbelievable amount of money in endorsement deals.
Exactly.
She's going to make so much. I mean, she already does State Farm ads. More locally in our region, she does ads for Hy-Vee. Like, she's going to be just fine, Darren Ravel.
Exactly.
But no,
why does he have to bring the negative in like that?
Big news, but frankly, I'm really not surprised by any of that news either. Any other headlines for you today?
Yes. I have a more serious MLB one than you do.
Okay. Yeah.
This is
my headline's pretty darn serious.
It's funny.
We'll have you go first.
I will give you that. It's funny. We should end on that. How about that?
All right, we'll do it.
While this isn't officially being reported anywhere, we've talked about it at length on the show about Fanatics and the accounts that tweet out things wrong with Fanatics.
Yes.
Now they're starting to point out things like MLB fans at spring training are starting to point things out that are getting retweeted by those accounts. The Cardinals were seen wearing their road gray unis, except the grays are two different colors in the pants and the jerseys. They're clearly two different colors. Like, what?
Did you guys talk yesterday about the Royals jerseys and how they? Okay, good.
How they asked for the names to be bigger and they made the names bigger.
I complained about this the other day. It makes me so angry and frustrated that something that didn't need to be changed is now just so much worse for everyone. Everybody takes a hit. It's the players, it's the people watching, it is the fans, it is the people buying merch. Everybody suffers for this for no reason. There's no reason that Fanatics and billionaire Michael Rubin need to make a product that's this crappy. There's just no reason for it. And I'm glad that baseball has been called out for it, but it's not going to change anything. That's the problem. They've got this exclusive deal. It's not going to change anything. I'm never buying a baseball jersey from MLB.com again. Never again. I mean, I haven't bought one in years. I'm certainly not now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't bought a real MLB jersey in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there are...
The thing that what I do about MLB is I just buy the jersey shirts.
Yeah, the jerseys. Oh, yeah.
Because you can wear... That's a more applicable to life.
But even those are worse material now and look worse.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying, but like I have one MLB jersey and I've just bought jerseys just because you can wear them more often.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to wear a jersey like jerseys thicker material, especially the ones that if you just get the generic one, it's not like the players wear that can breathe and everything. So I was like, I'll just buy jerseys.
Yeah.
They're cheaper.
They are cheaper.
And they're essentially the same thing.
Yeah. That's That's true. My final headline for us today. This is a sign of the crumbling of the United States Republic. This is a sign of this. America is crumbling, folks. The Philadelphia Phillies are scrapping Dollar Dog Night at Citizens Bank Park. They have cited unruly fans as their tipping point. For more than a quarter century, Phillies fans have considered Dollar Hot Dog Night among the ballpark's best promotions, but the team has decided it was the worst. There's a pun. You can't see it because this is radio, but it's spelled W-U-R-S-T in this Associated Press piece. Come on, AP. The dog days of April when Philly weather is cold, those deals are going, gone. They just love the freaking puns at the AP, I guess. The Phillies ended their popular promotion. No kidding. Ended their promotion Thursday and replaced Dollar Dogs with a 2-for-1 deal at Citizens Bank Park. The team said the change was made, quote, based on the organization's ongoing commitment to provide a positive experience for all fans in attendance. And they claimed that some unruly fans had started throwing meat at each other during a game last year. They are now taking it away. You cowards! Dollar Dog Night is one of the single best nights of the calendar year, every single year. I love that the Royals do it on Tuesday nights. I remember once being there for a Tuesday night game and eating 8 hot dogs. I felt so sick, but guess what? I spent $8. It was awesome. I love hot dogs. Love them.
Me too. There's this chain, gas station chain back east, Sheets, Pennsylvania.
Sheets, yep.
They do 2 for $1 hot dogs. Those hit.
That sounds really good.
Late night in college. I do have one final headline.
Hit me with it.
I want to get your take on it as an NFL fan.
Okay.
That unfortunately doesn't have a team owner for your favorite team.
Incorrect. I am the owner of my favorite team.
I like an official.
I've got
billionaire
paperwork.
owner.
I have an invitation to the shareholder meeting, sir.
I'm talking about a billionaire owner.
All right, fine.
That makes the final decision.
Fine.
So it has come out today that new Commanders owner Josh Harris is in Indy at the Combine in meetings, but has on multiple occasions stated that he is out of the decisions when it comes to personnel. It is everywhere on DC Sports right now, on Twitter, on the DC Sports Twitter, about this is terrible, this is a bad move, whatever, thinking that he's making the personnel moves. But what is your take on that?
So he is making personnel calls or not?
No, he's just sitting in on the meetings, trying to learn the NFL because he's an NBA.
He's
and
an
NHL
NBA guy, yeah. No, I would consider that a good thing.
What I'm thinking too. He wants to understand what is going on. He's not going to give input. He's just there to be there. Like,
I want my owner, especially a new owner, stay in the background. Do not meddle. Do not stick your nose in things. Like 5 years from now, if he's saying I'm not going to contribute, I'd say, okay, dude, what's going on? But for now, no, I would be totally fine with that. I would say,
if I was him too, I want to experience what my guys are doing. I want to see what I'm taking over in a different league. What do they do here?
Everybody hates David Tepper. I'm going to sit back and watch what David Tepper does and know that's not what to do. That sounds like a good plan to me. That's what I would do if I was at the shareholders meeting, but I usually can't go. That does it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Spencer's got you the rest of the way. We'll send it to Dan and Lat at Riley County coming up at 5:45. We're going to hear from Travis Goff coming up right after this break, though, on 580 Sports Talk.
5:33 here on 580 Sports Talk. Spencer Dupuy going to roll with you here for the rest of the show. Dan, you'll hear from Dan and the coach Larry Latimer here in about 12 minutes or so, as they will have the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship doubleheader tonight from Riley County. And Brendan Dorzinski on his way to Skinny Sports Bar. You can tune in to the Washburn Coaches Show here at 6 p.m. on Country 106.9. But for now, obviously everybody knows, we've talked about it on the show, Lance Leipold got a new contract. I guess not an extension, but he's getting $7 million a year, a raise to that. And that was announced yesterday, but today he spoke. Not only did he speak, but the AD, Travis Goff, spoke, and we'll play back Travis Goff's comments right here.
November, about not wanting to sit idle with your commitment to football. Were you on your own timeline to make, yesterday's announcement happen, or were there any catalysts from the outside that were, maybe accelerating things in any regard?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I think in November, we're talking certainly about a commitment to the best coach in college basketball, and really an unprecedented contract in a lot of ways. That's, again, about long-term viability and continuity, and it's certainly a reflection of what that program's done for our place. In that discussion, I referenced, whether it was asked or whether I just volunteered, that absolutely we will not sit idle in that commitment to football and to Lance and his staff. I don't know if it's foreshadowing, because probably by that juncture we were already working on the deal that was announced yesterday. And my assumption is that's exactly what was going on. We were already having those conversations quietly and getting out in front of this notion that, again, it might have just been 12 months prior, but that's no reason to sit idle, and that's no reason to risk the kind of continuity that's so critical to KU. As far as November to February 28th yesterday, no real profound rhyme or reason other than just the journey. It takes time, dotting I's, crossing T's. Lance, importantly, had something to say about timing of announcement. Didn't want to take away from achievements on the field for his guys. Didn't want to take away from what's going on with our basketball programs, for example, here in February as we get into March. And so it's really more of us taking a look at the calendar, realizing this was going to be a moment to talk broadly about momentum in Kansas athletics and Kansas football and beyond, but also for Lance to then address other dynamics in football as well. So that's kind of what brought us to today.
Travis, you have buyout numbers included in the amended contract, but they're fundamentally the same ones that were in the November 22 version. Just what were the conversations like surrounding buyout numbers, and how'd you end up arriving at the same final numbers?
Yeah. I mean, there was, if you rewind back 15 months ago, there was a lot of conversations around appropriate, reasonable, balanced buyout numbers in the contract discussion and extension of November 2022. So this was in some ways a continuation of that. It was, setting parameters and setting some baselines that you think will apply as you continue to rework and restructure deals. So some of it was just kind of intact. The thing, and I hear it, and I feel that too, of, well, why wouldn't there be some radical shift in buyout, right? These are business decisions and business agreements, so we can certainly understand that question. The reality, guys, is anytime a institution at the highest levels of intercollegiate athletics, Power 5 athletics, so to speak, has set its sights on a coach, and that same coach has reciprocated interest, I've yet to see an example where buyout has prevented that move. And so for us, in the spirit of partnership and trust and the big picture of investment, those numbers matter, but they're not a driving force. And the reality is the market and the industry says they're really not going to be prohibitive, so to speak, in that move. And for Lance and for us at KU, it is just one of many elements that goes into those contracts.
You mentioned Lance wanting more support for staff off the field. From your perspective, what are those conversations like, and what are the things that he really wants to focus on outside of just his own kind of salary?
Yeah, I mean, really, really thoughtful. For the most part, I'd say there's a balance. There's really thoughtful, kind of focused conversations around him, and then there's probably like 6 texts a day on what else is going on in the industry, which is kind of classic Lance Leipold. Communication, which is good, right? Because there's a constant awareness of what others are doing, which I think we all have to have. But more importantly than that is it's what do we need to do at KU? And that's really where the rubber hits the road on those conversations. What are the additional adjustments or additional investments we need to make in staffing around football? That's not a fixed dynamic, how that looked when he was hired in May of 2021 versus the conversations in December and January of 2023-24 is very different. And so I think really just being focused on what does Kansas need to do to provide the best development, coaching, mentorship, acquisition, so to speak, and recruiting, and support for its young men in the sport of football. And that's how you get to the right answer. So it's not arbitrary. It's not, hey, it's not based on we need more money to throw at it. We need to ensure we've got the right commitment that provides for what we're trying to achieve at Kansas, which is, by the way, to win championships. And so what does that look like in continuing to move this program forward? And that's been an evolution. And that's why in a lot of ways, contracts can change on an annual basis, because that's what it's taken for KU to make the kind of jumps we've made in just 2.5 years.
All right, we're going to cut it there. We're short on time. We're going to take our final break today before we get into final word, and then I'll hand you over to Dan Lucero and the coach, Larry Latimer, here in about 5 minutes. We'll be back for the final word next on 580 Sports Talk. Final word here on 580 Sports Talk this Thursday, Leap Day edition of 580 Sports Talk. Spencer Dupuy hanging out with you. You can tune in to Brendan Dorzinski with the Washburn Coaches Show over on Country 106.9 here at 6 o'clock. And in about a minute, I'm going to hand it over to Dan Lucero and the coach, Larry Latimer, as they're live from the Raleigh County High School Gymnasium, Silver Lake Beloit up first, and then Nemaw versus Rossville later on today, or later on tonight, for some sub-state basketball action here in girls basketball tonight. It should be a good one out there in Raleigh County. But it's been a good day here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll wrap things up. And I guess my final word today is I told Brendan before about what Josh Harris is doing. I'm a fan of that. Got to know what the NFL is like. And if you're going to do that, do it in your first year. Don't go back again. But that's my final word here tonight. We'll send it out to Dan Lucero in a minute from Raleigh County Gymnasium. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.